Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Friday, April 12th session of the California Coastal Commission. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask that Ms. Miller do the roll call, please.
Commissioner Aguirre,
Here.
Commissioner Bochco,
Here.
Commissioner Cummings.
Here.
Commissioner Escalante,
Here.
Commissioner Kunkel,
Here.
Commissioner Lowenberg,
Here.
Commissioner Nuttall,
Here.
Chair Hart.
Present, thank you.
You have one.
All right, we just have a quorum, folks, so everybody needs to stay here at the dais until more of our commissioners come in. Could we have virtual meeting procedures, please?
Good morning. This Coastal Commission meeting is occurring both in person and through Zoom. This meeting is also being webcast and can be viewed online at cal-span.org. If you have access to the internet and wish to watch or listen to the meeting only and not speak on an item, we recommend you use the CalSpan website. Those who wish to address the Commission today can do so in person, through the Zoom platform, or by phone. The speaker request forms may be found on the Commission's webpage. Both paper versions, as well as a scannable QR code for paperless submittal, are on the Commission's staff table just outside the meeting room. For those on Zoom, we have posted virtual hearing procedures on the Commission's webpage, which is a guide on providing comments via Zoom or by phone. Members of the public speaking during general public comment may be given up to 2 minutes to speak at the discretion of the chair. Requests to speak during general public comment period will not be accepted after 8:30 a.m. on each day of the meeting. In order to provide the opportunity for the broadest range of public participation, you may speak on a specific topic one time only each month. Those speaking on an agenda item that is not general public comment are typically allowed 2 to 3 minutes to speak at the discretion of the chair. We will accept a request to speak up until the chair opens the hearing on that particular item. If you have access to the internet, please go to the Commission's webpage and click on the link to fill out a speaker request. If you do not have internet access or prefer to testify by phone, please call the Commission staff at 562-477-9089. Again, that number is 562-477-9089. Staff will provide you with a telephone call-in number and instructions for how to participate and provide testimony by phone. We will manage speakers coming in and out of the meeting through a meeting organizer. When it is your time to address the Commission, the organizer will invite you to turn on your video and microphone or provide instructions on how to unmute the phone. Madam Chair, that concludes virtual hearing procedures.
Thank you so much, Bill. All right, now we're going to move to Mr. Schwang on agenda changes, item 3.
Thank you, Chair Hart, and good morning to everybody today. So the agenda changes sheet that was posted to the Commission's website on Monday, those items remain the same, but recognizing the long day yesterday and the interest and in the interest of making the best use of the Commission's time, staff is recommending 4 additional items be moved to consent. And in order to avoid any confusion over those, I'll read everything in order, including the new items that we're recommending be moved to consent. So item 9A, that's the City of Newport Beach's LCP amendment on their density bonus. We're adding that item to move to consent. Item 9B, the City of Newport Beach LCP amendment on ADUs in Bay Island, that's postponed. Item 9C, the City of Huntington Beach's LCP amendment on the Magnolia Tank Farm. This is the time extension only. That's moved to consent. Item 11A, it's permit application A5 LGB 2260 from the City of Laguna Beach on their Anita Street Pump Station project. That's postponed. Item 11B, permit application 522860, the City of Seal Beach Public Works Department, their water line rehabilitation, that's moved to consent. Item 11C, it's permit application 523291. This is Caltrans State Route 1 Bicycle and Safety Improvements Project in Huntington Beach. That's moved to consent. Item 11D, it's permit application 523-345 from the Newport Mesa Unified School District. That's postponed. Item 11E, that's application 523-701 from OCTA for their debris wall at the Casa Romanica site. That's moved to consent. Item 13A, City of Del Mar's LCP amendment on their ADU update. That's an LCP time extension only. That's moved to consent. Item 13B, the City of San Diego's LCP amendment on their housing action package. That's moved to consent. Item 13C, the companion amendment to that, their housing action package ADU amendment. That's moved to consent. And then last, item 14A, it's application A6 ENC 2259, the Newman application for a bluff-top home on Neptune Avenue in Encinitas. That's moved to consent. And that completes the agenda changes this morning.
Thank you so much, Mr. Schwang. All right, we'll now move to general public comment for items that are not on the calendar. We have quite a few speakers this morning, so the way we're going to approach this is we'll allow for 1 hour or until about 10 after 10 for general public comment, allowing 2 minutes each for each speaker. The speakers that are remaining after 10 after 10, we will hear at the end of the calendar this morning. All right, so let's move forward with general public comment. And can we start with people in the room, please? Bill?
Yes.
Thank you.
For members of the public, I will be announcing the names of the upcoming speakers and invite you to speak when it is your turn. Each speaker will be allowed 2 minutes during general public comment. In order to allow for live video testimony on Zoom, we will be bringing you in as panelists. As we bring you in, your Zoom will reload. This may take a moment. To speed up this process, we will bring several people in at a time, but please remain muted and keep your video off until we ask you to speak. After your time is up, you will be moved back to attendee mode. For members of the public present in the room, I will call your names in the order that they appear on our sign-up list. When you hear your name, please line up behind the podium and announce yourself with your name when you approach to speak. Several helpful tips. There is a raised hand function that will help us find you in the attendee list. If you are using a phone for audio, you can raise your hand by dialing *9. If you are participating by Zoom, you should see a button on your Zoom screen. If you have signed up to speak for this item and are able to do so, please raise your hand now. When it is your time to speak, we will invite you to unmute and turn on your camera. You can unmute yourself on a phone by dialing *6. Please remember to state your name for the record. Starting in the room, we will open with, Max Bracey, Veronica Vucetic, Susan Millman, Peggy Lee Kennedy.
Morning.
Hi, morning. My name's Max Bracey, founder and president of Diversify. Thank you for having me. Really appreciative to be here. Also, thank you to Annie Frankel, who's been our main contact at California Coastal Commission. So as I said, I'm founder and president. Can I turn the slide or? Oh, slide, next slide. Okay. So we're provide underwater experiences and environmental enlightenment for underrepresented youth here in Southern California. Next slide. And we were Whale Tail recipient in 2023. Very take a lot of pride in that. So thank you so much. And just to talk about the project, we're looking to do 24 scuba certifications for high school students from underrepresented communities here in Southern California. The cost is highly prohibitive, so to be able to do this for these students is highly impactful and transformative for them. These highly immersive experiences have been just invaluable. So after course completion, we do mentorship for them as help them towards success, whatever that is defined by them in their adult lives. Next slide. I will just show these are some photos that have been made possible by California Coastal Commission and our Whale Tail grant. So thank you so much. You could see how much joy this brings these students. Next slide. And this is a video. If you press play for this, it should go with the California giant sea bass, one of our students. So not an optical illusion, that is giant fish. So you can see how amazing this really is for them. Next slide. And I think, yeah, just next again. And yeah, oh, sorry. Okay, this was just from the California, the Avalon Harbor cleanup. We were able to provide this opportunity for the students to come out to Avalon to be able to participate in this community event. And yeah, just thank you so much for the opportunity. This is great.
That's awesome. So that was Catalina, right? Where the giant sea bass?
Yeah, that was Catalina at
Yeah,
the
so cool.
Casino Point. Is yeah, really great. So looking forward to more classes this summer.
Great. Thank you so much.
Veronica Vucetic, please tell me if I got it right.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Veronica Vucetic. I come with you today as a member of the CD11 Coalition to speak about our Venice Coastal Zone Mapping Restriction Park map here. Please refer to this handout and the map inside for my talk today. The CD11 Coalition believes in the right to accessible, safe, and overnight parking. Due to the abuse of the oversized vehicle ordinance, the portion of Venice in the coastal zone has become inaccessible for low-income people and those who reside in their vehicles. The map we've created using volunteer collected field data of the restricted parking regulations in Venice paints a clear picture of the proliferation of the oversized vehicle ordinances in the Venice coastal zone. Joined with no parking anytime restrictions, there are very few streets left where those residing in RVs can park overnight in Venice without being criminalized and fined for doing so. This area is covered by an emergency ordinance, allowing these ordinances to be passed without city council resolution and proper democratic procedures. Even the city's controller's office's map of the oversized vehicle ordinances in LA has been unable to catch the large number of oversized vehicle restrictions in the Venice coastal zone. The targeting of those who reside in vehicles by Council District 11 is abundantly clear as they continue to push out their unhoused constituents with threats of fines and vehicle impoundment through the weaponization of the oversized vehicle ordinance. Before the last bit of safe overnight parking is taken from the Venice community, from the members who live in RVs, something must be done to ensure the coastal zone remains accessible for everyone and the cycle of poverty is not continuously perpetuated through the criminalization of the unhoused. Please refer to the handout for more information about our methodology and specifications about our map. Thank you today for your time.
Thank you, Veronica. Susan Millman, Peggy Lee Kennedy, Patrick Raphael.
Hi, Peggy Lee Kennedy. Sorry, I jumped ahead of Susan. With the CD11 Coalition for Human Rights, we formed this coalition after our prior election of the council person who was elected really on the platform to get rid of homeless people out of the area and deny housing for homeless people in our area, low-income housing. And you know that map that you just got? I turned this in, it has my little business card stapled to it. And I just want you to know that there's a ton of stuff not on the map. The alfresco parking, really hard to map that because it's not right in front of every restaurant. And it goes around corners and down blocks. And, you know, I sent Ms. Hucklebridge an email about that about a year ago. I think I CC'd you in with links to it, that when they surveyed all these people that supposedly love it, well, who did they survey? The people sitting in the alfresco, not the low-income people that can't find parking, and not the neighbors. Also, I want to mention the criminalization factor. You know, people are being moved out. The mayor is boasting that she's housing people. She's not. She's putting them in temporary hotels that aren't even in LA City mostly. They're all away, far away from the coast. And now they're being kicked out. So they're not being housed. They're temporarily housed. And then when you're kicked out, what happens? The procedure is, if you see a tent, call the non-emergency number for LAPD. That's what they say in public meetings. They tell you to. And the SLO, LAPD officer says, and also email me so we know where to go get them. That's what's going on.
Susan Millman, Patrick Raphael, Adam Leverins.
Good morning. My name is Susan Millman. I'm a 50-year Venice resident and property owner. I am a retired attorney, having worked for the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles for 25 years. I am here to support and to bring your attention to the Venice Dell community, a much-needed low-income housing development on city land in the coastal zone in Venice. 140 homes for very low-income families, unhoused people with supportive services, and low-income artists. The need for this housing has never been greater. When she was elected, Mayor Bass declared a state of emergency, saying that 40,000 Angelinos will sleep without a home and 5 might not wake up. Since then, homelessness has increased by 10%. Nearly every day, news agencies report there is a direct link between the lack of low-income housing, the unhoused, and encampments. As we speak, the city and our councilwomen are proposing a mixed-use market rate housing with commercial development in a city-owned bus lot, which is now bridge housing for the homeless, with little to no low-income housing. Venice Dell community has been under review by the Coastal Commission for upcoming 2 years. The city of Los Angeles is stalling their submission to coastal staff. We need the Coastal Commission to help solve this problem and move this project forward. The people of LA need your help. These homes will change lives. Once housed with supportive services, these tenants will make good neighbors. We have seen it over and over again. Housing makes all the difference. Thank you.
Patrick Raphael, and then Adam Leverins, and then Rachel Wilson.
Wow. Thank you, commissioners. I couldn't have had a better person to go before me, because essentially what I'm here to speak about is a recognition that Venice is a different jewel for the nation and for the world that we should preserve as much as we can. I myself, I'm an artist. I live and work in Venice, but I can't afford housing. And the issue with housing is that if there's no low-income housing, people start coming up with creative solutions. And what the criminalization does is it just goes after the visible problems that are seen in the neighbor's face when somebody is unhoused and in their block, but it's not addressing what the root cause is. So the root cause being that there isn't low-income housing in Venice. What this Coalition for Human Rights have come to see is that this is the Dell project is something that's been already kind of debated on and talked about and even approved, and to have it kind of stalled now is kind of delaying a possible solution. So as somebody who is recognizing the historical character of Venice and how Venice has for a long time been attracting to folks who are looking to be in creative spaces, artists and musicians and such, what we can do to help increase low-income housing should be something that is front and center in what we're deciding. So the Venice Dell, which was already approved, is something that we should really consider why it was approved and how it's very urgently needed, and something that if we get going in the short term would even still take 2 or 3 years to get online, but would at least give somebody like myself who's in great need of low-income housing something to hope for.
Thank you. Adam Leverins, followed by Rachel Wilson and Steve Ray.
I have a slide, if you could bring that up, please.
Bringing it up now.
Can you flip through those?
Okay, this past Wednesday, the Newport Beach Harbor Commission voted to substantially increase the rates for offshore mooring permit rents. Um, it's unfair as compared to pier permits, which are docks on shore. If you could bring up the next slide, please. One more slide. Thank you. As you can see from this image, a boat on an offshore mooring and a boat at a dock occupy the same footprint, although technically the dock boat occupies more because by nature there's a dock there. These two things are in close proximity to each other, but in Newport Beach, the person at the dock currently pays about $30 a month, while a person with an offshore mooring of 40 foot is paying $134 a month. What the Harbor Commission proposed Wednesday was that go to $480 a month, which is 8 times more than the dock people pay. This is obviously unfair in most of our opinions. Coastal Commission policy says that the conversion of lower cost visitor served facilities to high cost facilities is a barrier to access for those with limited income and contributes to increased coastal inequality. The city of Newport Beach seems to be striving for the opposite, more socioeconomic exclusiveness, which will increase inequity and remove one of the last affordable means of boating and housing for people that reside in Newport Beach, likely adding to the number of homeless people, which in Newport Beach, they ship off to Costa Mesa. Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel Wilson, followed by Steve Ray, and then David Gonzalez.
Good morning. My name is Rachel Wilson. Chair Hart, commissioners and staff, thank you for letting me speak. I am moving up the coast from Morro Bay today to the little town of Cayucas to talk about a proposed hotel. This was proposed in 2021. The county approved it. Chair Hart and Commissioner Escalante at the end of 2021 are the appellants on this. We have been told that Mr. Cobb is now wanting to build this motel. Your county geologist actually said that, or the Coastal Commission geologist actually said this was unsafe. The applicant geologist said, no, it's a safe property. They say the bluff retreat will be about 3.5 inches per year. We're going to show you later that that is not correct. They also say that this is going to be 28 feet away from the creek. Next slide, please. This is luxury accommodations that will be on the green grass there. As you can notice, there is the ocean where the ocean comes in, and you can notice the creek sitting right there. Next slide, please. This proposal is going to cover the entire bluff top. And if you notice right there, there's a public walkway along the edge of the bluff, very close to the edge of that bluff. And then there is an area where the public can also sit, but right behind that area is a 30-inch retaining wall that will separate the hotel from the public access areas. They've also requested that their public access areas go from the condo association next to it. Thank you. Mr. Ray's going to speak next.
Steve Ray, and then David Gonzalez and Wade Womack.
And I'm going to continue with the slide presentation. Good morning. I'm Steve Ray, Madam Chair, Commissioners, and staff. It's good to be here with you. Yeah, Rachel is showing this slide here of the project, and as you can see, there's no bluff setback at all. The project goes right up to the edge of the bluff. Next slide, please. But what you'll find out that this bluff that they intend to build on is not actually a historical bluff. This is a man-made bluff. It didn't exist before the Highway 1 was constructed in the 50s and 60s, and they took a lot of the extra dirt and just dumped it over to the side there, and that became the bluff. And then they also decided that, well, gee, well, let's just use that as landfill. So they dumped a bunch of garbage in there. So that bluff is made up of landfill garbage and loose dirt, not very stable for anything. So that's the history of it. Next slide, please. And you'll see here that on the right there, up at the center, the one that stated 125, that's the eroding bluff face. And you see below that pictures of some of the detritus and the garbage that's actually washed out of the landfill now. They put a lot of tires in there because a lot of tires are coming out of there. And it's being washed away. And how is it being washed away? Next slide, please. By the water. And if you would start it up, this is a video showing the waves coming in. And if we can get it to work here, I don't know. You'll see the water splashes up above the top of the bluff. As it comes over here, you'll see the Cayuga Creek that comes right down to the ocean right here as well. And that creek has a lot of flooding. The ocean has a lot of impact. That bluff is going to disappear. About the only thing that's appropriate to put here in this place is not a hotel, maybe a boat-tel. It'll be allowed to float away then. So thank you very much.
That was a good statement, but I want to tell you that I'm already beginning to call you Moro Ray.
Davin Gonzalez, Wade Womack, and then our final in-person speaker is Peter Kaz.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm here today to speak in defense of public access to particularly, I live in Venice and I've lived there a long time. This is Venice and it's a very historic place and we want to preserve public access to the beaches from the urban core and from the surrounding communities. Right now, we have a very odious oversized vehicle ordinance which discriminates against people coming to our community, even for tourism purposes, to visit in RVs where they cannot find any place to park. And also we have residents that, houseless residents that are living in RVs. And this is their solution. These are people we have many people that live in their RVs. Their RVs are insured. They're registered, they're drivable, and they go to work during the day. And so what happens? They come back and their home is towed away. So I'm here to speak out against that. It's a misuse of the city ordinance, of the oversized vehicle ordinance. It's a misuse. We have signs that are put up that didn't go through, parking restriction signs that didn't go through the city properly, through the proper departments within the city. We have a council person that puts out slick propaganda instead of and doesn't represent the people that want public access. This is Venice, very historic. We want to preserve the access, public access to Venice. And the Venice, especially the historic oceanfront walk along Venice. Venice is very historic. I urge you to come and check it for yourself. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Wade Womack, followed by Peter Kaz.
Good morning, Chair Hart and Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. I'm here to advocate. My name is Wade Womack. I'm a boater in Newport Beach and a resident in Newport Beach. I'm here to advocate for the mooring users, basically the little guy in the harbor. First, I'd like to thank the Commission for protecting coastal access for all people, regardless of socioeconomic status. Secondly, I'd like to point out that using a mooring, it's very rustic, it's hard to access. And for that reason, it's generally very affordable. It's not as easy as a homeowner with a waterfront dock that walks out there and pays 25% less to use the same tidelands. Next, the moorings are for boaters on a budget, and they have been for roughly 100 years. And we'd like to see that amenity remain available at an affordable cost. And we'd like to stop the price discrimination that's about to occur in Newport Beach. I would think a 500% fee increase that has been recommended would require a coastal development permit, as it certainly will eliminate access for roughly half the boaters in Newport Beach. Could the commission direct me to the correct staff person that we may reach out to regarding this matter?
Through the chair.
I just give her the look, but I have to talk. Dr. Huckleberry.
Through the chair, Mr. Womack, Carl Schwing would be the right person to get in touch with first, and then we can send you to the appropriate staff analyst. Absolutely.
Great. Thank you so much, and thank you all for all your effort to protect the coast.
Peter Cass. And then we'll move to Zoom with Joe Wilson, John Dow, Gary Walsh.
Good morning, guys. I'm also a mooring owner at Newport Beach for the last 3-4 years. Sorry, I got emotional. I put my boat for sale last night because the rate hike is like 4 times what I'm paying right now. We are being pushed to the corner, to be honest. And because we are not in the same class as what they are, because they have a bigger yacht, I look at these today. It just reminds us, the mooring people, the rate hike is based on an appraisal that it looks like a lot of conflict of interest. It's provided by them. We did a third-party appraisal. They don't want to look at it. And based off third-party appraisal, we paying the fair market share. San Diego pays $100 or something around that. I pay $100. Other mooring places, they pay almost the same thing. And because we are not like them, because we don't make money as much as them, they're just pushing us to the corner.
Thank you, sir. We're going to move to Zoom now with Joe Wilson, followed by John Dow and Gary Walsh.
Thank you, folks. We're going to have a few questions. So if you want to remain to the end of public comment, I know several commissioners are going to have questions regarding the comments you've made. All right, please go to them.
Mr. Wilson.
Yes, good morning. There's a crucial immediate need in our community to better understand what Orange County Transit Authority appears ready to do to San Clemente. An emergency coastal rail presentation OCTA provided last month, which contains this slide of a project roadmap. It's projected to start with railway protection construction in about 5 months in North and South San Clemente, meaning a start this August, now 4 months away. The project consists primarily of boulder dumps to widen their riprap revetments. During the presentation, the OCTA project manager stated, quote, "We need to get ahead of the next storm season. Phase 1 would be initiating agency coordination and regulatory permitting. And we've already begun that process with the Army Corps of Engineers and the California Coastal Commission." If you could remove the slide, please. I can't make it more clear than this. There's a significant groundswell of support from the San Clemente public and our city council that sand replenishment must precede any revetment enhancements. We all know that once the revetment additions cover up most of the tiny amount of sand we have left, the ocean waves hitting the rocks at high tide will scour off the remaining beach and it will be gone. Please, if you are in fact in discussion with OCTA regarding an emergency request for revetment mitigation, let them know that you would consider an emergency permit for sand mitigation first, not boulders. Truth is, and we all know it, boulders kill beaches. So next up, John Dow regarding mitigation for previous boulder dumps at Cypress Shores, Gary Walsh and Susie Whitelaw on proposed boulder dumps at State Beach, and then Lisa Gant on agency transparency and public participation. Thank you for this opportunity to present our concerns.
Thank you, John Dow.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I have a slide presentation. Thank you. Slide 2. Hello, commissioners. John Dow, Save Our Beaches, San Clemente, speaking again on OCTA's senseless and continuous assault on San Clemente's beaches. Today, specifically on mitigation for OCTA's 2021 beach destruction in South San Clemente. Slide 3. OCTA's playbook is now obvious. First, do nothing to proactively protect the tracks, then wait for the predictable to happen and call it an emergency. Then use this as a pretext to obtain an emergency permit and engage in actions that would be rejected through any normal review process. Then proceed to destroy coastal resources when superior alternatives exist. And then after the irreparable damage has been done, negotiate with you folks for the least mitigation possible, preferably an in lieu fee paid for with taxpayer dollars. Slide 4. The mitigation imposed for this past damage is now even more significant with OCTA's new $200 million riprap plan to destroy 50% of San Clemente's beaches, in addition to the 30% already gone. Oh, and the $13 million doesn't even come close to addressing the past damage. Slide 5. Last December, we proposed some mitigation objectives. I would add, in kind is better than in lieu fee. In kind requires OCTA to take direct responsibility for their damage and will have a greater future deterrent than a fee paid for with taxpayer dollars. They break it, they fix it. Also, a fungible payment can be diverted or misspent. However, if you decide on a payment, please include strings to make sure it's spent in South San Clemente. Lastly, if it's the Corps that issues these emergency permits allowing OCTA's senseless destruction, and you can't prevent these actions and can only impose remedies post-destruction, then only by requiring meaningful mitigation can you enforce a course correction by an out-of-control agency needing restraint. OCTA has shown a total disregard for the objectives of this commission and the interests of Californians, and their beach-destroying actions must be stopped. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary Walsh, and then Susie Whitelaw, and then Lisa Gant.
Yes, can we go to the next slide first, please? Thank you. Hi, Gary Walsh, Save Our Beaches, San Clemente. And as you heard, OCTA is once again asking for these emergency permits. I would request that you ensure that it is an emergency and not an urgency. I ask you, don't fall for their cant phrases and promises that sand will be implemented as part of their plan, because their plan goes like this. They're going to place riprap down first, and then at some later time, they'll look into placing sand down in front of the riprap. That won't work because the beach will be eliminated, and the possible effective methods of replenishing beaches all require a beach to exist. No beach, no replenishment, and OCTA will shrug their shoulders and say sorry. Now on slide 1 here, this is what South San Clemente looks like after OCTA implemented massive riprap. This is a sea level photo, and I say sea level because you'll note there is no beach. That's because the riprap exacerbates sand erosion, as we all know, and once placed, there is no buffer to keep the ocean from the riprap. Now, this is not a doctored photo or specially timed during king tides. This is just a random shot I took a couple of weeks ago. No consideration given for the tides. Slide 2, please. Slide 2, please. Can we get to the next, or go back?
We're working on it.
There we go. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so this is what the San Clemente State Park beach looks like currently if you were to turn around from when that last photo was taken. Notice the high tide line and notice where the revetment proposed comes out, 50 feet from the tracks. Actually, the tide goes a little higher, but I didn't try to time it out. So this means that the beach will not exist after they put the riprap in. And it will look like, if you can go back to the other slide again, This is what that beach will look like in quick order. Another accessible beach to join the ranks of the dodo bird on the. Oh, you delayed me a little bit on the photos. Let me just finish up. Any approval of the permit must be strictly mandated that a plan requires sand needs to be put down first. Thank you.
Susie Whitelaw.
OCTA's proposed engineered revetment would cover the entire, I'm sorry, I had a presentation.
We're pulling it up now.
Thank you. OCTA's proposed engineered revetment would cover the entire San Clemente State Beach out to the red line indicated between the magenta and the yellow lines. This represents about 40% of San Clemente's public beaches. Next slide, please. This beach is included in SANDAG's 2027 sand replenishment program under the umbrella with the city of San Clemente. But when it looks like the photo on the left, how do you even begin to set up a dredge operation like you see on the right-hand side, which requires a beach? Sand must come first. Next slide, please. We have a plan which we will be presenting to staff. First, import sand. Oh, I'm sorry. Looking at it from a cross section, how do you replenish a beach when rocks are covering the beach? Sand must come first. Next slide, please. We have a plan which we will be presenting to staff. First, import sand via train and truck to stabilize the front of the revetment, then allow the minimum amount of rock necessary to stabilize the tracks while they consider relocation. Next slide, please. What we are asking from you is to issue emergency permits for sand, not rock. OCTA plans to claim an emergency to bypass environmental impact analysis. CEQA allows for emergency repairs to publicly owned service facilities. To streamline the environmental process, it is recommended that a single corridor wide, the 7 miles of SE, be utilized, according to OCTA. Next slide, please. Meanwhile, they're characterizing the work as a routine maintenance to obtain exemption from the Coastal Commission. The CCC has the discretion to exempt ongoing routine repair and maintenance of railroads. Therefore, it is recommended as a first step that OCTA request an exemption from the executive director for any work in all potential reinforcement areas. Next slide, please. OCTA claims that the Coastal Commission is the major impediment to protecting their tracks with sand instead of rocks. Let's prove them wrong. It's obvious that sand is better than rocks. Please give sand the same permitting concessions that you would for rocks. Let's have 50 feet of sand, not 50 feet of rock. Thank you.
Lisa Gant. And then Mary Jane Schramm, Derek Falconer, Carl Willard.
Hi. I am very disheartened by the Orange County Transit Authority's approach to rail resiliency in San Clemente. OCTA calls it coastal rail resiliency, but there is really no coastal resiliency in OCTA's approach. We have already lost a beautiful beach in Cypress Shore to the dumping of tons of boulders. The most recent proposals on March 11th by OCTA mentions only boulders and seawalls. Sand is not in that plan. I understand that emergency plans have their place. However, the coastline in San Clemente could use some proactive planning. The issuance of emergency permitting seems to be carte blanche to the dumping of huge boulders on our beaches. These are not small revetments. They are monster revetments that are piled high and wide. Over and over again, expertise has been shared with OCTA that sand replenishment is the environmentally responsible solution to railroad and beach resiliency, yet there is no serious effort to include sand replenishment in their proposals. A great deal of what OCTA is proposing is stated with the caveat of emergency permitting, and emergency permitting in this instance is due to lack of oversight. Emergency permitting bypasses environmental scrutiny. OCTA is not being held accountable, and there is no mitigation being offered for our lost beach. We need proactive planning of sand replenishment. Please issue emergency sand permits for our beaches. Thank you.
Mary Jane Schramm, Derek Falconer, Carl Willard.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mary Jane Schramm with Marin Audubon Society to support the Farallon Islands National Wildlife Refuge restoration. This photo shows the Farallon's steep rocky terrain, which at times teems with wildlife and are overrun with invasive mice. To restore the native ecosystem requires their complete eradication. Next slide, please. The Farallons are now among the most mouse-infested islands on the planet. Mice directly cause death to native species and attract owls that prey on endangered ashy storm petrels that are already in a steep decline. A breeding pair of ashies raises only one chick each year, and losing one parent to owl predation endangers that chick's survival. Mice also kill endemic Farallon salamanders and cave crickets. Next slide. Contraceptives can't fully eradicate mice. Each pair can breed 15 large litters each year. Continuous resupply of the drug on steep, dangerous slopes would make follow-up doses hit or miss. They'd create chronic, catastrophic disturbances in nesting and pupping seasons. Next slide. But Brodificum D conservation is EPA labeled for island restoration. It would also halt the inevitable massive annual mouse die-off from starvation when their food runs out. And on these desert islands, it always does. With climate change further threatening at-risk species, we can't just let them slide toward extinction by failing to act decisively when the time comes. Commissioners, thank you for all that you do for our coast.
Thank you, Derek Falconer, Carl Willert, Andrea Luker.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Derek Falconer, and I represent Protect Point Loma, a group that deeply values our coastline and the unique ecosystems they support. We come before you to express our apprehensions regarding the City of San Diego's proposal to establish a homeless tent shelter and RV-safe parking lot at the H Barracks site adjacent to Liberty Station and Spanish Landing Beach, the largest recreational areas on San Diego Bay, welcoming 9 million visitors per year. The proposed RV safe campsite, essentially an asphalt parking lot equipped only with porta potties, lacks essential RV support infrastructure. The absence of electrical hookups necessitates the constant use of diesel generators to power motorhomes, raising serious concerns such as the potential for diesel spills during refueling and the emission of pollutants, thereby degrading the air quality and threatening coastal waters through runoff. Additionally, the lack of pump-out facilities leaves the disposal of gray and black water from RV tanks unaddressed, proposing a significant risk of contaminating our coastal ecosystems. However, beyond these environmental hazards, there is a pressing concern about the social implications of situating a homeless tent encampment and RV park across the street from family-oriented beaches. Our coastal areas face a dire threat from the influx of crime and drug-related activities that often accompany such homeless encampments. In similar settings across California, including parts of San Francisco and Venice Beach, we have witnessed an unsettling trend of hypodermic needles and drug paraphernalia littering beaches and playgrounds. Including a population struggling with these challenges into a coastal setting is not only irresponsible, but it undermines our commitment to maintaining clean and safe access to coastal areas for families and children. We implore the Coastal Commission to reject the City of San Diego's proposed development at the H Barracks. Thank you for your consideration of these urgent matters, and we trust in your commitment to safeguarding our coastal treasures for the enjoyment and safety of future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl Willert, Andrea Luker, Ula Camilla Rang.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Carl Willard. I'm addressing you today as a concerned resident of Del Mar. This past week, the San Diego Associated Governments, or SANDAG, started seawall construction in Del Mar. Next photo, please. The seawall construction was deemed essential to stabilize the bluffs and the train tracks that run atop the bluffs. Because these bluffs are unstable, everyone agrees that these train tracks will have to be moved further inland, and the plan is to do so by 2035. These seawalls that are currently being installed are meant as a short-term solution to ensure bluff stability until the train tracks are relocated. At that point, so we're told, the seawalls will be removed. However, there's a problem with this plan. As illustrated in these photos, please, next photo, the most stable part of the bluff, the toe of the bluff, which does not erode significantly, is being removed. Next photo, please. The workers will then install supposedly temporary seawalls by removing and cutting into the most stable parts of the base of the bluff. These bluffs are being permanently damaged, and the future stability of the bluff will depend entirely on the seawalls, which, as I mentioned before, will be removed in 10 years when the train tracks are relocated. This makes no sense. Next photo. These photos here illustrate where and how deeply, please next photo, where and how deeply these bluffs are being cut, undermined, and weakened. Also, next photo, the material being removed, next photo, from these stable bluffs is being collected on the top of the bluff at the south end of Del Mar. What will happen with this excavated material? This is the exact material that under normal conditions replenishes our beaches with sand. It is heartbreaking to see this happen, and it absolutely makes no sense. I would like to see some oversight of this process. Who is monitoring this work by Sandak? How much of the bluff toe has been excavated? How much more will be taken away? This makes no sense. Thank you for your time and listening to my comments.
Thank you. Andrea Luker.
Good morning. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Fantastic. My name is Andrea Luker. I am a member of React Alliance, a nonprofit, nonpartisan grassroots organization that's working to educate the public about the proposed offshore wind projects off the coast of San Luis Obispo, of which we are opposed to. On Wednesday, I listened to your discussion about SpaceX and their launches and applaud your concerns about weather balloons, 9-volt batteries, and other debris falling into the ocean after launches. You had a lengthy discussion about the importance of the health of the ocean and the impact on marine species from these activities. Of course, I immediately thought about the proposed offshore wind projects and the similarity of profit-making offshore wind companies proposing activities that will do harm to our marine environment. I hope in the future that your commission will give the same scrutiny to the upcoming requests from offshore wind companies and their activities that you gave to the activities at Vandenberg. React Alliance is in close communication with our sisters and brothers on the East Coast involved in opposing offshore wind. Just yesterday morning, a juvenile humpback washed ashore on Brant Beach in New Jersey, where survey vessels have reportedly been working. Nearly 200 whales have died or stranded on the East Coast since December 2022, and those are the ones we know about. It seems like we should be moving in the direction from correlation to causation. I'm not sure if you've seen a whale or a dolphin stranding, but it is absolutely a gut-wrenching experience that you will never forget. As we move forward, please use the precautionary principle. When the possibility of harm exceeds that of the benefit, we must pause. Thank you and have a good rest of your meeting.
Thank you. Ula Camilla Rang, Leslie Kashiwada, and then Dr. Margot Griswold. Camilla?
Good morning, commissioners. I'm Camilla Rang from Del Mar. I would like to support everything that was said and shown by Carl Willert earlier. I would like you to come to the beach of Del Mar and see what Sandag is doing. They are removing bluff material. They are shaving and mutilating our bluff. The whole idea about the seawalls that you sadly agreed to was to add material to the bluff to increase the angle to make a better runoff and put up seawalls. What they're doing right now is horrifying. They're cutting into the bluff, shaving it. Huge piles of bluff material is left as grave mounds, which feels very symbolically very true of what Sandag is doing. They're killing our bluff and beach. What is going to happen to that bluff material that normally would have been added to our beach? At the very least, make them spread it out and keep it on our beach. We need this sand. You say, but Sandag will take down those seawalls once the train is moved. I don't see how that will be possible because they have dug away the bluff to put up the seawalls. There'll be nothing left to hold the bluffs up. Sandag has destroyed the whole geological setup. Please take control of this project before our whole coastline is completely destroyed. I'm beyond disappointed that you actually agreed to this to begin with. And meanwhile, Sandag has not even approved a budget for the mitigation you requested. They are tricking you, delaying the mitigations and hiding the truth, all the while they are destroying the coastline that you swore to protect right in front of our noses. Please take control of this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Leslie Kashiwada. Oh, she's coming in as a panelist right now. Leslie, we're bringing up your presentation and you can begin.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm trying to bring up my talk. There we go. Thank you. Honorable Coastal Commissioners and members of the public, my name is Leslie Kashiwada and I am a resident in the Fort Bragg area. I want to thank you for the excellent objection letter written by your staff in response to the negative determination provided by Mendocino Railway in their railroad rehabilitation project. There were many letters from the community expressing their concerns about this project, including one from me. The hearing you held on March 14th in Sacramento provided further clarification of the issues. Fixing the collapsed tunnel and rehabilitating the rail line on the crookedest railroad in the world is welcomed by the community because it would restore the link between Fort Bragg and Willits. This is a beloved tourist junket that is enjoyed by many locals as well. However, the analysis of impacts provided was woefully inadequate. People may be wondering what this apparently inland project has to do with the coast. As this map shows, Fort Bragg is bounded on the north by Pudding Creek and on the south by the Noyo River. The rail line originates in Fort Bragg and winds its way up Pudding Creek and into Redwood Forest. Some miles in, the rail line crosses over to the Noyo River, following it up to its headwaters before traversing Oak Woodland to Willits. Removal of old degraded rail ties and replacing old bridges that cross both Pudding Creek and the Noyo River multiple times is a risky undertaking because soil contaminated with many toxic substances may end up in the waterways and wash out to the ocean. Not only did their analysis fail to mention that the Noyo River is the main source of water to Fort Bragg, there was no discussion of potential impacts on the marine environment. Their bland assurances of following best practices rings hollow when there is no agency that sets these standards in this situation, and the holding company for this rail line has refused to allow city and county staff on their property for inspections. Next slide, please. I've also expressed concern about the flow of water over the outfall from a contaminated mill pond on railroad property into the ocean at Soldier Cove. Once again, I'm asking that a series of monitoring stations like Mussel Watch be set up to assess potential contaminants flowing into the ocean. Our health of our ocean ecosystems requires that we be on alert for contaminants and have plans in place to mitigate them if they're detected. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Margot Griswold, followed by Marcy Snyder, and then Mandy Sackett.
Good morning, commissioners and staff. Dr. Margot Griswold speaking for the Los Angeles Audubon Society. Los Angeles Audubon Society has one of the oldest education programs at the Ballona wetlands. We also have a twice monthly open wetlands to encourage public access within the Ballona wetlands. Both programs are implemented through our dedicated volunteer docents. I wasn't able to speak on Wednesday, but I want to thank you for expanding the mitigation area within Area A of the Ballona wetlands for the after-the-fact permit by CDFW. I would also urge staff to adhere to CDFW implementing the mitigation, planting and seeding area within Area A, where the impact occurred. This is standard procedure and should be followed. Alkali heath, one of the main species to be restored, is already found in Area A and has been demonstrated to expand when weeding by volunteers occurred on the edge of the trail in Area A. I would also like to call your attention to Los Angeles Audubon's request that I put in on last Friday that might ask the question of the Department of Fish and Wildlife, where is the land management plan for the Ballona Wetlands Ecological Reserve? This is not an idle question. I've been asking this question of Director Bonham for the last 4 years at every public meeting known to man on the state issues. And he's woefully misinformed by staff because we have a land management plan. And I would urge the Coastal Commission to insist CDFW
Thank you,
has a land management plan. Thank you.
Marcy Snyder, Mandy Sackett, and then Sydney Scott. Marcy?
Good morning, commissioners and staff. My name is Marcy Snyder, and I'm a resident of Fort Bragg, California. I want to thank you for all your ongoing work, for all your efforts to protect our community and the wildlife along our coastland and on the land. Most recently, last month, you submitted an objection letter to the Federal Railroad Administration on their negative determination for the railroad to go along that 40-mile track between the coastline and Willis, a very, very windy road, and indeed the crookedest railroad in the world. And you submitted an objection letter. There would be 31,000 railroad ties, electrical poles, all treated with toxins in order preservatives. The Noyle River, our water source, runs right next to the railroad line. The railroad line is right next to the river, and those toxins would be washed out in, or many of them would be washed out into the river, onto the coastline, into the Noyle Harbor. Once again, the Noyle River's our source of drinking water. Those toxins would include, but are not limited to, arsenic and copper. I very much I very much appreciate you requesting a consistency determination from the Federal Railroad Administration for Mendocino Railroad's proposed project and all your ongoing efforts to protect our community and the wildlife. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's 3 more speakers, and then I'm just going to call a few names that I'm not able to find currently.
That's perfect. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Mandy Sackett, Sydney Scott, and then Tony Nelson. Mandy?
Good morning, Chair Hart and Commissioners. Mandy Sackett with the Surfrider Foundation. This coming Monday, Pacifica will be considering adoption of an updated draft LCP amendment for sea level rise at the City Council meeting. Last March, Coastal Commission staff provided suggested modifications to their original draft and agendized the hearing, which was postponed. Since then, the city has held several workshops and developed alternative modifications rather than accepting Coastal Commission staff's input directly. Most notably, the city has developed a concept called special resiliency areas that allow for neighborhood scale seawalls, even if they would otherwise be found illegal and inconsistent with the Coastal Act. Significant concern has been raised about this at the public workshops over this concept, but the city is poised to push it forward. And if this concept sounds familiar, that's because it is. In October 2022, the Coastal Commission denied Santa Cruz County's proposal for their land use plan update because of this exact same policy. They called it a shoreline armoring exception area. And regardless of what it's called, carving out areas for special seawall exceptions creates a massive loophole in the Coastal Act. It would open a Pandora's box of copycats, and it also raises the question of broader equity implications, like which neighborhoods get seawall exception areas? Is it only the most wealthy who can afford it? The Coastal Act does not allow for new development or major remodel development to rely on shoreline armoring. Why? Because the coast is eroding, and even faster with rising seas. If our only response is to rely on seawalls, we will lose our beaches, waves, habitats, recreational and economic lifeblood of the state. And I really don't think there's a way to mitigate out of allowing this neighborhood scale seawalls. We hope that you can direct staff to look carefully at those policies and remain consistent with the Santa Cruz County decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Sydney Scott.
Hi, Sydney Ramsden Scott, a 55-year resident of the Monterey Peninsula. The Navy's proposed construction of a 290,000 square foot Naval Innovation Center on the Naval Postgraduate School grounds in Monterey. In addition to being only 1,000 feet from Monterey Bay Marine Sanctuary and the Del Monte Beach, it's only 1,000 feet away from Lake El Estero to the west and 1,000 feet away from Del Monte Lake on the east. All these bodies of water need environmental protection from noise pollution as well as the particle pollution construction of such a huge building will put into the air, water, and soil. According to the Navy, the building is going to take 2 to 3 years. And during that period, the 50 construction vehicles entering and leaving the Naval Postgraduate School per workday will block Del Monte Avenue, which will necessitate rerouting traffic to and from the north via Highway 1 through quiet local residential neighborhoods. Traffic will be severely impacted since this is a peninsula and there is only one artery, Highway 1, on and off this peninsula. The extra pollution from tailpipe emissions will be significant to our air quality and will affect the animals and wildlife, especially the birds along the coast. The increase in staff and student population, 1,500 new students, almost 1,000 new staff, plus 200 visiting guests each year, brings even more pollution. An environmental impact report is needed. The environmental assessment the Navy did is not sufficient to address these things completely and accurately. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final speaker is Tony Nelson, and then I'll call some names I wasn't able to locate.
Good morning, Tony Nelson with Capo Cares. OCTA is about to embark on a plan to dump riprap on the San Clemente coast to the tune of $200 million. It is critical that it comply with the Coastal Act, CEQA, and other environmental laws, just like any other entity that seeks coastal development. The project must be subject to study of environmental impacts, which are horrendous, and required mitigations, which will never compensate for the loss of our beaches. OCTA's environmental clearance strategy is explicitly stated on page 32 of its report. It is seeking to evade environmental study by claiming an emergency. This is not an emergency. It acknowledged the risks in reports as early as 3 decades ago, but neither put down sand to protect its line nor pursued relocation. Now they want another 30 years to harm our coast and the health and welfare of millions who have a right to access. Please require OCTA to define the harm they allege will come while they go through environmental review. We have ridership numbers from Public Records Act requests. Railroad interests repeatedly claim 8 million annual rides on the Lausanne corridor. There were less than 4 million last year, and most of it was concentrated around LA. A fraction of 1% of OC's population is riding the trains between San Juan and Oceanside versus millions with a stake in this coast. Freight is not even a rounding error as a percent of goods movement here. We can survive without train service while they go through environmental review. We do it all the time. The line was down 251 days in the last 2 years with no discernible impact on highway traffic or supply chains. We need your help. Please demand facts. Don't buy claims of emergency. The railroad is not the only stakeholder on our coast. Thank you.
I'm going to lower the hands in the attendees list and call some names. And if you hear your name, please raise your hand. If you're on a phone, you can dial *9. Or if you're in the meeting, please approach the podium. Patricia Opatz, Lori Hedrick, Jose Hernandez, Susan Kirks, Stephanie Tarkington. I'm seeing one hand raised in the Zoom. Sonoma County Conservation Corps, I believe. If one of those folks is you, please unmute.
Thank you. Yes, this is Susan Kirks. Good morning, Chair Hart, commissioners and staff. I'm Susan Kirks, president of Madrona Audubon in Sonoma County. The Farallon Islands are now being impacted by extreme winter storm events. The islands are identified in Dr. Mackes Mark's new book, Stars on Earth, as an indigenous sacred place Climate impacts and indigenous history have not been adequately considered in the proposed anticoagulant poison project to try and eradicate mice. Hazing trials were conducted almost 14 years ago in 3 phases over several days. I and others reviewed the hazing trials report upon which information in the EIS was based. Minimized in the report is direct disturbance of sea lions, stellar sea lions, and harbor seals. Described as most effective tools in hazing were exploding pyrotechnics, fireworks, rockets, and screamers. A statement in the report indicates gulls may ingest the poisoned bait. An expert within the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in 2015 shared just 25% of the Western gull population flying to and from the mainland daily, if 75% could be hazed away, would be 7,500. He stated, quote, non-target kills. Gulls will need to be hazed away from the island for 3 months. This is the highest population breeding colony of Western gulls anywhere. There will be 2 to 3 lethal doses of fish-flavored pellets in every gull territory. Jerry thinks the gulls won't eat them. I do. They did on Rat Island, end of quote. The expert predicted the gulls would eat the bait on Rat Island, and they certainly did, as did more species, and the project outcome at Rat Island was extremely tragic. Indeed, we must be concerned about further infiltration of the food chain, particularly Brodifacoum, and residues in our soil, biota, and fish tissue from ingestion of poison bait. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Kirks. All right, does that complete public comment? All right, thank you so much, Vail. That was amazing. All right, let me bring it back to the commission and ask if there are any questions or comments as a result of public comment. Commissioner Aguirre?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank the speakers who came out today to talk about homelessness and how difficult that is. I just want to reiterate that this commission supports affordable housing. Unfortunately, that authority has been taken from us many years ago. But I think one of the speakers hit the nail on the head when they said that homelessness is caused by lack of low to very low income housing. We see that time and time again, you know, especially in San Diego, which was named by the U.S. News and World Report as the most expensive city in the entire country. And we did see a jump of 24% of homelessness this past year. So I know that some out there, especially the YIMBY movement, loves to criticize us for not approving projects. I don't know what that means, but we are for affordable housing. And yes, building more housing is important, but even more important it is to build low and very low income housing, because once we have folks in a homeless situation, it's really difficult to put them back into housing and to provide services. So I just wanted to make that point. Secondly, I wanted to make a quick comment to Max from Diversify. Wonderful presentation. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I think that increasing diversity and inclusion, especially in the you know, environmental science space, is so important. And one of the ways to do that is to promote diving. So thank you for the work that you're doing and for sharing that with us today. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks for those great comments, Commissioner Escalante, followed by Commissioner Turnbull Sanders, and then Commissioner Bochco.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I definitely want to associate myself with Commissioner Aguirre's comments, and just to add to the Diversify presentation, A+ on the branding. I thought that was very, very clever. I grew up very low income, but I was when I was young, I went to the Caribbean and got my PADI certification, and going down into the ocean and seeing marine life under that prism was life-changing. It was one of the most beautiful experiences in my life. So I'm delighted to see that you're opening up those doors to our youth. So thank you so much, and I'm glad that the commission has been helpful, and hope will continue to do so. And to the Venice situation, especially since I've been on this commission, I remember the vote a long time, many years ago. about some of those, this bridge housing and homeless projects that were coming up. What's the status of that Venice Dell housing development?
Thank you, Commissioner Escalante. Through the chair, I'd love to ask Steve Hudson, who's on the line right now, to give a little bit of an update on the Venice Dell project.
That'd be great, Mr. Hudson.
Thank you. So just to note, there are two different projects. The bridge housing project was a temporary project that we processed a waiver 4 years ago that provided temporary housing for homeless people. That project is currently under review at the city. They're processing a coastal development permit to extend its time. The other project, the Venice Dell, that involves a coastal development permit that was appealed to us, approved by the city and appealed to us. It has a related land use plan amendment and a retained permit coastal development permit application that comes directly to the commission as well. I would note, though, that our staff is incredibly sensitive to any delays on that project, and our staff is not our process. And the coastal permit and LUP process is not the cause of delay. The city, in this case, is locked in litigation involving several different litigants and the applicant as well. And those settlement discussions do not include us, but at the heart of those issues are the same issues that we have been struggling to resolve with the city and the applicant. And that is that this is a large public parking lot directly adjacent to the beach. It provides really important public parking. The city would, well, the applicant, these nonprofits would construct new affordable housing and a mixed-use retail project. But part of that proposal is that the city would maintain public parking for the beach and an incredibly important public boat launch ramp that the commission required years ago on site. Although the city is intricately involved, they refuse to join as co-applicant, and that has caused issues that we are working with the city to resolve. The city is not in agreement with the parking plan that they themselves approved. The lift system that would be involved would be very expensive and could cause parking rates to increase up to 600%, from about $10 to $50 to $60 a day. And the city has indicated with any of these systems, they would not accept or operate the public parking. So these are the issues that we are trying to work out with the city and the applicant. We are confident that we're making progress, but these confidential settlement discussions that the city is involved in with the applicant and the litigants has caused another delay, as we're not party to those, and the city is not able to negotiate with our staff until these settlements conclude. So we're staying abreast of the situation. We're doing everything we can to move that really important project forward and find what we hope is going to be a good compromise solution that provides for all the affordable housing that's been proposed and maintains public access. So with that, I'm just going to note I'm available for any more questions.
Thanks, Mr. Hudson. Commissioner? I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, but we don't allow further public comment once public comment is closed. I will tell you that contact with us is so easy. Mr. Hudson's email is online, phone numbers are online. Please reach out to us. And as you can see, we're doing everything we can to help move the project forward. Commissioner Escalante?
Agreed. Thank you, Mr. Hudson. And I do look forward to progress on this and for some very good, well compromising on some of the sticking points. Then the Newport mooring fee increase, I was very compelled by the testimony of the public, and I didn't know about this community. So thank you for coming and telling us about your story. So what's our response? It does seem to be quite a bit of an issue of public access.
So this is the first that we've heard of it as well. So we've gotten the contact information of the folks who joined us today. Thank you for raising the issue to us. We'll be following up.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, and hope we can get to a good resolution for you all. That's it. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Commissioner. All right, Commissioner Turnbull Sanders.
Right. Thank you. I want to associate myself with my fellow commissioners and their comments. They pretty much covered the things that I was going to, with the exception of a couple. I want to also echo the kudos and thanks to Max Bracy with Diversify. Really important, not only just for exposure and creating the next generation of stewards, but thinking about access and some of the impediments to access, which are swimming proficiency. And the drowning rates for Blacks and Latinos in particular are multipliers, much higher than other populations. And the more likely you are to learn how to swim when you have children, that also reduces the number of fatal accidents. And as drowning is one of the top 3 major causes of death with youth, it's really important. So thank you for that. I also just wanted to bring it back to staff through the chair. Will we have an update, or when is our next scheduled sea level rise conversation? I know we have these periodically, but the San Clemente area, my family goes and uses the Amtrak and goes down to that area, and you literally are looking over the side like,
Yeah.
are we sure we want to take this? But as we see, some of the major areas of infrastructure along the coast being threatened, I know we have a great relationship with a lot of our transportation authorities, but really thinking about, bringing, since we're having so many of these public comments, having another forum on sea level rise and protection of, and balancing the protection of major and really critical infrastructure. Thank you, Commissioner. We don't currently have a specific conversation as you're describing scheduled. We can kind of contemplate that and what might be the best format and timing for something along those lines. I did want to mention that we are very actively involved in the conversation around OCTA and some of the public comments that you've seen today. As you saw, we have an item on today that's a follow-on permit to an emergency action that we authorized from OCTA. It's a very active and ongoing conversation at all levels of government at this point. There are conversations going on within the administration, within the local government, within the legislature. So it is a very active conversation, and I think we have a meeting with OCTA next week as another example to talk a little bit more about the follow-on for the emergency permit at Cypress Shores. So there's a lot going on there. We will be updating you as we can. That follow-on permit will be coming to the commission at some point later this year. I'm not really sure of the timing yet, but it is a very, I do want to thank all the public commenters too for coming out. We appreciate all the time and effort they've put into coming up with solutions and trying to work with everybody. And I just want them to know we are listening. And we are, very actively and are working very hard to ensure that as we contemplate what to do with this rail corridor, that we are really thinking about public access and how are we maintaining, and as this commission is charged to do, maximizing public access in these areas, because these are really critical beaches. And we have lost some of them, and we'll lose more if we don't actively think about how to ensure that access moving forward. So that's where we're coming from, staff, on those discussions, and we'll be updating you and bringing future decisions to you as the time is right.
I just also want to mention that we're very lucky now to have Commissioner Scott Williams from Caltrans as a member of our commission. Want to acknowledge him joining the commission, and he's been integral in working with Caltrans and the commission in what I think is an incredible success story of collaboration. And as we talk about the entire coast and all of our transportation infrastructure, it's great to have you on, Commissioner Williams, to be part of that conversation. So thanks so much. All right, Commissioner Bochco.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Very, very briefly, to the Venice Dell project. I really appreciate the information that Mr. Hudson gave us, because I had not heard recently what the status of that was, and it's an incredibly important project, and I would certainly encourage the city of Los Angeles and the county of Los Angeles and anyone who is in a position to make this happen. I realize public access is something that it is our mandate. And I think it is so important for legislators and city government to understand that. But I think public access can also be achieved in other ways other than parking lots. And I think, as a commission, we've seen that growing slowly, but now more quickly as the needs for housing become more imminent. So what I would suggest is if the city was serious about really settling this in a way that the Coastal Commission can approve it quickly without any delay, would be to include us in those conversations. But I'll talk to Mr. Hudson about that. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments? Commissioner Cummings.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with the comments that were made by my colleagues earlier on diversifying all the great work that they do and the situations in Venice. I do want to revisit the Newport Beach issue because I think I'm very concerned with what's happening there, and I've seen it in other communities where, Coastal Commission has a lot of things going on and people try to, kind of undermine the Coastal Act. And in this instance, I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity. I know you're going to be engaged with the members who are being impacted, but I'm wondering if there's any opportunity for a cease and desist order to be issued against the city of Newport Beach in this instance. I mean, a 400, % increase in slip fees, obviously it's coming as a huge shock, and it's actually making people potentially have to sell their boats. And I don't know in that instance, but I know people who live on their boats because it's the only affordable housing that they can find. And if this came to somebody's attention, they couldn't afford it, it could impact their housing and push people into homelessness. And it just seems like a situation where this is a kind of egregious violation of, their ability to adjust their fees. And so I'm just wondering what potential enforcement action can be taken in order to kind of allow for a conversation to happen and allow for us to see whether or not what they're doing is legal before this fee actually gets implemented, because it can have direct significant impacts on people who are at these moorings.
Thank you, Commissioner Cummings, for those comments. I mean, at this point, we've just heard about this, so I hesitate to even get into a discussion about what the solutions are before we have a chance to really understand the full, what action the city take. I think in the past, we generally haven't done permits on changes in fees, but it might be appropriate to do so. There's a lot of things we need to look into before we start talking about solutions. But I assure you that when we get to that point and we know we get our heads wrapped around what the situation is, and I know we need to do that quickly. I'm very aware of the gravity of the situation. We will be looking at the full suite of options once we get to that point. I don't feel comfortable saying what we should do yet because I don't understand the full depth of the problem yet.
And that's why I'm asking, just because I know that there's people in the room who are concerned, and I'm also concerned. And so I appreciate that response. And then I guess at the same time, I think it's definitely worth looking into and better understanding why dock fees are so much less than mooring fees, because typically it's the opposite. Right. I mean, being on a mooring is much more challenging to access than being on a dock. And so I think it's worth also understanding that scenario, because it seems like there might be a need for us to intervene and get that rectified as well. Thank you.
Just to follow up on my colleague, Commissioner Cummings, it's nonsensical. It doesn't make sense. To maintain a dock is far less expensive than a boat just being moored. It's nonsensical, and it feels like they're being pushed out, and it's intentional. And our obligation is for access, and this is absolutely the opposite of what should be happening. So we don't need to belabor the point, but I think you've got a lot of concern here on that one.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Nothoff.
Thank you, and I appreciate comments from all my fellow commissioners. One thing that I haven't heard brought up yet is the sand drilling at Del Mar. I'm assuming that they're operating under a coastal development permit, and wondered if we are monitoring to make sure they're complying with with any conditions that we put on, because it does sound problematic what they're doing.
So this commission did authorize a consistency determination for Sandag to do in the bluff stabilization projects. And I know that those projects did include some bluff excavation as part of them. And I assume, although I haven't had the time yet to check, that is what's occurring in Del Mar right now is authorized under the CD that this commission heard several years ago.
So if the public continues to have concerns, they could check the conditions in the permit and contact the enforcement unit if they don't think they're complying. Would that be something they could do?
Yes, they could. I
Okay.
mean, they should just contact staff, and I would probably recommend that they either contact our energy, ocean resources and federal consistency staff, because it was a federal consistency action, for details on status and sort of what monitoring is being done and how we're following that.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Hucklebridge, what I was hoping, and given the level of concern about the Newport Beach mooring fees and the urgency, what I was hoping is when you, once you have a chance to look into it, perhaps you could advise me and I can update my fellow commissioners on what you found and how you intend to proceed so that we don't have to wait to the next meeting, because it sounds like a very urgent situation. So that would be great if you could do that.
I'm happy to do that.
Okay, thanks so much. All right, that concludes the general public comment. We'll now turn to item 5, the administrative calendar. Mr. Schwing.
Thank you, Chair Hart. So agenda item 5 is the administrative calendar for all districts. On the agenda today, there are 2 dock projects from Newport Beach and Huntington Beach. I do want to note the receipt of comments from Mr. Jim Mosier on item 5A, the Lido Isle Community Association dock. Mr. Mosier notes his concerns about certain access conditions in the area and the location of the dock, and staff did respond to those issues in the staff report addendum. So staff, the conditions are acceptable to the applicants. We aren't aware of any additional comments on the matter. So we're looking for whether 4 or more commissioners object to the issuance of these administrative permits.
Thank you. Are there any speakers on the administrative calendar?
Just one available for questions.
Okay, thank you. I'll bring it back to the commission. Ask if there are 4 more commissioners that want to remove an item. All right, seeing none, the administrative calendar is adopted, and we'll move on to the consent calendar. Item 6.
Thank you. So item 6 is the consent calendar for all districts on the agenda today. There's 2 items from Orange County. Again, on item 6B, staff received comments, a comment letter from Mr. Jim Mosier. In this instance, Mr. Mosier's primary comment relates to the alignment of the dock compared with adjacent docks and whether this project impacts the public's ability to get to the small beach in front of the bulkhead at the site. And staff did respond in an addendum, but generally didn't find the proposal would adversely affect coastal access, and the dock would be in alignment with other docks in the area. So the conditions are acceptable to the applicants. There's no additional comments we're aware of. So staff recommends those matters be approved on consent.
All right, are there any ex partes on consent calendar? Are there any speakers?
Just one, again, available for questions.
Okay, in that case, I'll close the public hearing on the consent calendar and bring it back to the commission for any comments and a motion.
I'm happy to move.
All right. Commissioner Aguirre moves consent and second by Commissioner Cummings. I believe that the consent calendar, that there are no commissioners on Zoom this morning. All right, in that case, is there any objection to adoption of the consent calendar by unanimous consent? All right, consent calendar is adopted. We'll move on to items removed from the regular calendar.
Thank you. And today we have 5 items from Orange County and 4 items from San Diego County that we're recommending be moved to consent. First, I'll go through that list again, and then I do have some follow-up comments in response to comments that we received on a number of those items.
Thank you.
So again, starting at the top, item 9A, that's the City of Newport Beach's LCP amendment on their density bonus. Item 9C, City of Huntington Beach's LCP amendment on the Magnolia Tank Farm, that's the LCP time extension only. Item 11B, the permit application 522-860, the City of Seal Beaches water line project. Item 11C, the permit application 523-291 for Caltrans State Route 1 bicycle and safety improvements project. Item 11E, that's application 523-701 from OCTA for the debris wall follow-up permit. Item 13A, the City of Del Mar's LCP amendment on their ADU update, time extension only. Item 13B, City of San Diego's LCP amendment on their housing action package. Item 13C, the companion housing action package ADU amendment. And then last item 14A, application A6 ENC 2259, the Newman matter from Encinitas. So staff is recommending the addition of item 9A, the Newport Beach LCP amendment on density bonuses, that be moved to consent. We did receive comments from Mr. Jim Mosier and Mr. Chris Peterson on this matter that contained a number of recommendations on changes to the staff recommendation. After working through those with the commenters and the city, staff did prepare a comprehensive addendum that collectively replaces the modifications that are in the staff report and believe the changes fully address the comments received. And the city is in agreement with the current staff recommended modifications. On item 9C, the LCP time extension for Magnolia Tank Farm, staff did publish an addendum with a correction to the time period that's covered by that extension. We also did receive comments that were too late for publication, including comments in opposition to the project itself, and at least one recommending the commission avoid the time extension and simply deny the proposal now. However, the full amendment is not in front of the commission today, just the time extension. So while the city and the project proponent and many members of the public certainly want to see the project brought before the commission as soon as possible, we understand the city and the project proponent are not opposed to the recommended extension. And staff shares the goal of bringing the matter back before the commission as soon as possible, with an initial target of the June hearing, but we aren't able to make a firm commitment to that at this point. On item 11B, the Seal Beach Public Works Waterline Project, that there is a staff report addendum that's responsive to comments that we received from the applicant, and they are in agreement with that addendum. On item 11C, the Caltrans bike lane project in Huntington Beach and Seal Beach, staff did receive comments registering complaints about certain parking conditions in Huntington Beach. However, the project doesn't involve any of the parking along this road, and staff referred those concerns to the city who manages the parking there. Staff also received correspondence just late last night from the city of Huntington Beach, generally in support of the project, but asking the applicant to replace trees that are proposed to be removed in the median of the roadway with mature trees instead of smaller saplings that need more time to grow. Staff recommended conditions require a final landscape plan through which we'll work with Caltrans and the city to address their concerns as much as possible. But I do want to note that it may not be possible to replace the trees in their current location, in which case an alternative would be sought. Item 11E, which is the OCTA project along the railroad, seeking approval for the emergency installation of the barrier wall in the vicinity of Casa Romanica. Staff did have a report addendum with some corrections and clarifications to the staff report, and we aren't aware of any opposition to that project, and the applicant's in agreement with the staff recommendation there. Moving to the San Diego Coast District, staff is Again, recommending the addition of item 13B, the City of San Diego's LCP amendment, known as the Housing Action Package 1.0, that most substantively implements the Senate Bill 9, which allows for multifamily uses on single-family lots. Staff and the city worked together on recommended suggested modifications, and it's our understanding the city supports moving the matter to consent. So staff did receive comments from a member of the public seeking some clarifications about the staff analysis, and we did respond fully to that in the staff report addendum. Last, staff is recommending moving item 14A, the Newman application for residents on the Blufftop and Encinitas. We did receive comments from Surfrider Foundation raising concerns with the rate of erosion that's used as the basis for the location of the bluff edge setback. Similar comments were submitted on another project before the commission a few months ago. And staff's conclusion about the rate of erosion then and here are based on a number of sources, including site-specific information that isn't reflected in the erosion rate preferred by Surfrider. So staff continues to recommend use of the erosion rate that was reviewed and determined by our geologic and engineering staff. So we continue to recommend that matter be approved on consent. So with all those matters, we're recommending the items get moved to the consent calendar and approved per the staff recommendations.
All right, thank you very much. Do any commissioners have an ex parte on any of the items that have been removed and are now on the consent calendar? All right, is there public comment on the items removed from the consent and added to consent?
There are speakers signed up for 4 items and then a number of folks available for questions on
Okay.
another number of them.
So let's move forward with the speakers.
So for item 9C, we have 6 folks signed up in person to speak, starting with Lizzie Braver, Nancy Buchos, Mary Jo Bertich, Richard Armendariz, Raymond Heimstra, and yeah, I guess 5. So if you heard your name, you can line up behind the podium and begin. Just start with your name, please.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Lizzie Braver, and I'm an undergraduate student at UC Irvine. I'm here speaking as a concerned member of the public, but also on the behalf of Orange County Coastkeeper as one of their interns.
If you could pull the mic down right by your mouth, that would be great. You could just pull it down. You don't have.
Okay, thank you. I am here speaking on the agenda item 9C regarding the Magnolia Tank Farm project. And I know the decision has been postponed and it's being recommended to continue to be postponed, but I encourage you to deny the proposal for rezoning. In the past months, I've spent researching the Magnolia Tank Farm and have learned about the ample information highlighting how unsafe this site is for residential use. Not only is the site extremely vulnerable to sea level rise and flooding, but its proximity to the Ascon toxic waste dump and its runoff impacts are extremely concerning. I understand that this project is hoping to address widespread housing crisis in Orange County. However, it's been historically had unsubstantiated claims of planning for this goal. So I would urge the commission to consider the benefits do not outweigh the risks. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Nancy Buchos.
Good day, Commissioners. My name is Nancy Buchos. I have lived in Southeast Huntington Beach for 40 years, and I'm here today to oppose the recommendation for the extension for the Magnolia Tank Farm. My neighborhood and home sit directly next to the Ascon Superfund site and adjacent to this property. And living in Southeast Huntington Beach, we have to deal with the most industry in the city. In a 2-mile radius, you will find 2 operational power plants, a state chemical Superfund site, and the Orange County Sanitation District. People in my neighborhood have to deal with a lot of what that industry provides. There are a lot of similar illnesses, a variety of different cancers, including 5 cases of the most dangerous childhood cancer, DIPG. With little data to understand why these illnesses are present, the community can only assume the common denominator, which is that they live by this toxic area. These sites have contributed to chronic air, water, and ground pollution for decades. And after 40 years of me living there, it's very obvious these power plants, AES, and Superfund sites have left a permanent scar on the health of the community in Southeast Huntington Beach. So what does this mean with regards to the tank farm? Why am I here? Well, living next to toxic sites and power plants has consequences for people who live there. One example from my family came in 2004 when an oil well erupted at Ascon when DTSC was digging next to it. Over 360 homes were covered in oil. It was the worst oil accident in Orange County. Air quality was so compromised. I had city leaders come to my front door in my front property in full hazmat suits and respirators. My family didn't have that. It was really scary. In 2019, Ascon again tried to excavate a portion of their site. When a toxic plume enveloped my neighborhood, hundreds of people complaining of the same environmental exposures. It's not safe. It's a bad location. People should not be living there. Please don't make the same mistakes twice. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary Jo Beretich, then Richard Armendariz and Raymond Heimstra.
Yes, good afternoon, evening, rather, what is this? We're in-
Morning, it's still morning.
Morning, aren't we? My name is Mary Jo Beretich. I've been resident in Huntington Beach for 41 years, living very close to the Magnolia Tank Farm property I live on the other side of Newland Street and Coast Highway. Our organization, Residents Responsible Desalination, have been working with many years with the Coast Keeper, Surfrider, Azul, and many other environmental organizations throughout the years. With the strong assistance of the California Coastal Commission, we've stopped development of our precious wetlands in Huntington Beach and have protected vulnerable homeowners living near the AES facilities, the once proposed Poseidon desalination facility, and the Ascon toxic waste dump. The Magnolia Tank Farm is another of those areas that needs protection rather than residential and commercial development. This land was once used for oil tank reservoirs and for the AES facility where it was powered by oil. The tanks are removed, but years of oil leakage underground will be emitting methane gas up through the soil for numerous years, just as it is now happening in the Pacific Shores condominium community on Noel Drive, right next to Newland Street, across the way, very short distance away, where oil tanks were removed. Methane gas pipes had to be placed through the complex to vent the gas out. This land was originally a wetland with ponding in some areas actually of oil lakes. It is just north of the coastal zone boundary. The city chose to develop it. And that was one of the situations. The oil is underneath. They had to build 10 feet higher, but it's still there. Another negative development is the tank farm for multi-million-dollar homes, upscale hotel. So during the Santa Ana winds, fumes and particles blow across the land from the Ascon toxic waste dump. There's no way to stop that.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Richard Armendariz.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, my name is Richard Armendariz. I'm a retired administrative law judge for the state of California. I'm speaking in opposition to the staff's recommendation. This matter was before the commission on July 13th, 2023, more than sufficient time for the issues to be resolved. And these issues cannot be resolved. The Inglewood Newport Beach fault line is still present. The Ascon toxic mud dump is still present. The rising waters and the flooding dangers are still present. So therefore, I recommend that the commission deny the request for a continuance and shut down this matter once and for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ray Heimstra, followed by our next speaker in person for the following item is Eric Snelling, and then we have a few on Zoom.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Ray Heimstra. I'm with Orange County Coastkeeper. So I'm here today. Got to say I'm a little disappointed that this ended up on consent because I think this is a very, very important item. I'm recommending, that the extension not be granted. And the reason is I don't see any reason why we should be wasting staff time and continuing to waste the public's time on this absolutely horrible project. They had a continuance back in July, they withdrew, and then they immediately put back in another permit request. And I read over all the documents, the sea level rise assessment, the other, and it's just junk. It's just, the staff, I understand why they're asking for the request, because this is junk. And they're gonna have to be going back and forth and getting more and that type of stuff. And it's just very disappointing. We're just really dragging something out. You can't hammer a square peg into a round hole. This is a horrible project. You've heard all the different things, so I won't repeat it, but I would really like to see this thing dead and done as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Eric Snelling for item 11B, followed by Shirley Weiss and Chris Duncan for 11E.
Yeah, good morning. Eric Snelling with Stantec Consulting Services here on behalf of Seal Beach. If there are any questions, I'm available.
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you.
Shirley Weiss for item 11E.
He's just here to help.
Shirley Weiss isn't on Zoom. Shirley, you can unmute yourself, please. You're still on mute, Shirley. There we go.
Good morning, commissioners. My name is Shirley Weiss. I'm a resident of Del Mar, and I have practiced law in California for over 40 years. My topic is the scintillating topic of soldier piles. The commission staff report, which has approved or recommends approving soldier piles in San Clemente, basically conditions it on the parent voluntary statement of the applicants that the soldier piles are being, that the land is eroding and that they are becoming visible. I think that the commission's mitigation conditions on soldier piles, which are these big concrete and steel ugly things drilled into the bluff, clearly in violation of the Coastal Act, but allowed by a loophole for existing structures, that its mitigation be much, much more aggressive, rather than wait for them to notice that the soldier piles dirt is eroding. Please amend the report to require affirmatively a status report every year from these applicants. We're going to be looking at 2 miles, hundreds of concrete and rusted steel soldier piles someday. The dirt around them is going to continue to erode. If there's no mitigation, we are going to have scarred coasts. Please, please amend the report and require affirmative reporting to the Coastal Commission on the condition of these ugly, defacing, scarring implementation, subsidy to the railroad industry, soldier piles on a yearly basis, at least, by the applicant and by the trans.
Thank you.
Thank
Next, we
you very
have Chris
much.
Duncan on 11E, and then our final speaker is Mitch Silverstein on 14A. Chris, you can begin.
Okay. Hey, everyone. Chris Duncan here. I am a San Clemente City Council member, but I'm not speaking on behalf of the City Council of San Clemente or the City of San Clemente today. I'm talking about this item that OCTA has with the soldier wall at Camp or Casa Armonica. Of course, we support removing it eventually. It is an eyesore. But the fact is, as Tony Nelson mentioned earlier, it should never have had to be built. We know that our coast has eroded, especially in San Clemente at that key point where the railway comes through very close to the ocean, as we heard today. And what should have been done and what we can still do is to protect our coastline and protect our homes and protect our residents by putting sand down, not by building walls, not by loading up with rocks. If we want people to have access to our beautiful beaches of San Clemente, the answer is simple, and it's been before us. We know what it is. It's investing in sand replenishment and sand retention. And so as OCTA continues these projects and has $20 million allotted to continue stabilization projects for its tracks, we urge the Coastal Commission as strongly as we can to include sand mitigation at a minimum, and not sand in the sandbank that might go somewhere else, but sand that comes right to San Clemente, right in the area where the damage has been done by the riprap and rocks to protect the tracks. So urging all of the commissioners and staff as well, please include sand mitigation, and even more than that, include affirmative sand placement and retention as part of these projects. The funding is there. This is a worthwhile effort to protect access to our coasts. And I just can't urge it as strongly as possible. On behalf of my residents of San Clemente, a parent and myself, I want to see my kids be able to enjoy the beach. I want to see neighboring communities continue to take Amtrak down there, as we heard earlier today, and enjoy our beautiful beaches. That requires sand, not rocks and not walls, sand. That's what nature has always put there to protect our coastlines, and that's what's the answer. And the commission has the ability to encourage and require, frankly, OCTA to provide sand as part of any project. Please do so for this project and for any others where they're working to protect those tracks, because our beaches are more important than any rail line. I think we all know that, and let's make
Thank you
sure that
very
we make
much.
that point very clearly.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Mitch Silverstein is our final speaker.
Thank you.
Thanks, honorable commissioners. On 14A, we actually agree with and are thankful for the special conditions recommended by staff, especially those that preclude future shoreline armoring and require a relocation and removal plan to be submitted prior to issuing the CDP. We're also thankful for the substantial issue appeal brought forth by then Chair Brownsy and then Vice Chair Hart when this item was approved locally, in contradiction to Encinitas approved LCP and with a bluff tap setback that, quite frankly, did not rely on the best available science. Sure, we have concerns regarding the new improved bluff top setback rate. The applicant and the applicant's agent may see Surfrider's comments as contrary to their plans, but a larger setback may ultimately benefit them by preempting the need for future removal or relocation of parts of their home. It also may prevent injury to both the occupants and the beachgoers below in the case of an episodic bluff failure that takes part of the home with it. Lastly, the applicant's agent, Geosoils, submitted a fiery response to our comment letter, accusing us of cherry-picking facts and of not being a licensed geologist. With all due respect, I could provide an entire volume of examples when some licensed geologists, hired and paid for by property owners, have cherry-picked facts to give their wealthy clients favorable bluff setbacks that go against the best available science. I have better things to do with my time, but if I did so, I'd start with the initial bluff setback rates recommended by this applicant's agent, which the commission found substantial issue on. Lastly, I may not be a licensed geologist, but I take my role as a representative for public beaches and the millions of people who use and cherish them very seriously. Surfrider's comments are not and will never be for hire to the highest bidder. With all that said, we're pleased with the strong language and the special conditions of this CDP application and thank both staff and the commission for their excellent work on this item. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that completes public comment on the consent calendar. So I'll bring it back to the commission and ask if any commissioners want to remove an item on the consent calendar. All right, seeing none, does anyone have any comments on the consent calendar or would like to make a motion?
I'd like to move consent.
All right, Commissioner Aguirre, moved, second by Bochco. And are there any comments?
I just wanted to see if staff could comment on the Magnolia Tank Farm item, since there were so many people that came out.
Sure. Mr. Schwang, do you want to, or Dr. Huckabridge on the extension?
Just wanted to note, I think as Mr. Schwang did mention in his comments earlier, that the item in front of you today is an time extension so that staff can have a little bit more time to fully assess the very complex project and bring it to you in the near future. We don't anticipate needing the full time extension allotted, but and we'll bring it as quickly as we can. But I appreciate the comments. It is an incredibly complex project, and we are working really hard to get our heads wrapped around it and to bring you a really solid staff recommendation. So if you have any questions, I don't necessarily want to get into the details of the project today, but just want to be clear that this is just for an extension.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that that was clear for the folks who came out today, and we'll have a much more deep dive into the discussion about this item at a future date. But this is just to give staff a little bit more time to review the application that's come in.
Thanks, Commissioner Cummings. Any other comments? I have a comment. I'm sorry, Commissioner Nuttall, sorry.
I did wonder about putting the OCTA piece on consent, but in looking at the staff report, I do think satisfied that that's on the inland side of the tracks. I did also look up soldier piles, so I got educated on soldier piles, and I appreciate the public comment on that. But this is on the inside of the tracks, but I really appreciate all the comments about the importance of sand.
Mr. Schwing?
Thank you, through the chair. So just to clarify that, the project that's in front of the commission with that item, this is a wall on the inland side of the railroad at the toe of the bluff. There's no soldier piles stabilizing the bluff itself at all. These are just the foundation for it's essentially a debris wall to prevent bluff material that is, well, there was a large landslide just inland of the wall, and the wall's there to keep landslide debris from further getting onto the track. So there isn't any stabilization component on the bluff itself. I just wanted to clarify that.
Great. Seeing no other commissioner comments, I just want to say that I'm very pleased to see items 13B and C moving forward on consent. Once again, staff has worked to, with, in this case, the city of San Diego, to quickly approve housing initiatives, some having to do with ADUs, which was the subject of a conversation up in Sacramento this week. And it's great to see those items moving quickly through the process on consent. So I'm very grateful for that. All right, on that note, we do have a motion and a second. I'd like for a roll call vote, please, on the consent calendar.
Commissioner Aguirre.
Yes.
Aguirre, yes. Commissioner Bochco.
Yes.
Bochco, yes. Commissioner Cummings.
Aye.
Cummings, yes. Commissioner Escalante.
Yes.
Escalante, yes. Commissioner Lowenberg.
Yes.
Lowenberg, yes. Commissioner Nara.
Aye.
Nara, yes. Commissioner Rice.
Yes.
Rice, yes. Commissioner Uranga.
Aye.
Uranga, yes. Chair Hart.
Yes.
Hart, yes. The vote is unanimous.
All right, great. So the next item before us then is the Deputy Director's Report, item 8.
Thank you, Chair Browns, Chair Hart.
That was a good
Pardon
one.
me. So yes, the next item 8 is the Deputy Director's Report for South Coast District, Orange County. Report contains 4 waivers for routine projects in Laguna Beach, San Clemente, and Seal Beach. There's no known opposition on these items, and we're asking whether 3 or more commissioners object to any of the waivers in the report.
Thank you. Any speakers? All right, do 3 or more commissioners object to an item on the Deputy Director's Report? Seeing none, the commission concurs, and we'll move on to item 10A.
Thank you, Chair Hart. So item 10A is the substantial issue hearing on an appeal of a permit issued by Dana Point to construct, to demolish a residence and build a new 2-story, 3,552 square foot residence on a beach fronting lot at 35665 Beach Road. The appeal contends the subject site is on a narrow beach that is currently subject to wave hazards and flooding that will increase with sea level rise, exposing the proposed development to those hazards. And the city's action fails to address whether some or all of the proposed structure may need to be removed as those hazards to the proposed residence increase and the boundary of the public trust moves inland. Preservation of public access to and along the shoreline is also a concern, especially in light of the proposed retention of an existing seawall. And finally, the appeal contends that visual impacts from increasing the height of the development was not adequately addressed, analyzed or addressed in the city's action. So staff is recommending that the commission find these contentions raise a substantial issue as to conformity with the provisions of the city's LCP. And since staff is recommending a finding of substantial issue unless there are 3 or more commissioners who wish to hold a hearing on the question, substantial issue would be found and staff will return the matter for a future hearing on the merits of the proposed project. Note, if the commission does wish to hold a hearing on this today, staff does have a more complete presentation to cover the issues.
All right, great, thank you. Any ex partes on this matter? Do 3 or more commissioners wish to have a hearing on substantial issue? All right, seeing none, substantial issue is found, and we will move on now to, I believe, the San Diego Coast DDR. Item 12.
Thank you again, Chair Hart. So item 12 is the Deputy Director's Report, San Diego Coast District. In this packet, we are reporting the City of San Diego's adoption of the Commission's suggested modifications related to their LCP amendments known as the 2020 and 2021 Land Development Code updates. The Executive Directors determined that the city's actions are legally adequate to complete the certification process on those items. We are also reporting 7 emergency actions, 5 by the City of Oceanside to breach a beach berm at Loma Alta Creek in order to prevent inland flooding of low-lying properties, and 2 in Encinitas to address slope erosion caused by the recent storms. And finally, we're reporting 4 waivers and 1 immaterial permit extension. There's no known opposition on those items, and we're asking whether 3 or more commissioners object to the waivers or the permit extension in the report.
Thank you. Are there any speakers? All right, is there any objection to concurrence with the Deputy Director's report? Seeing no objection, the Commission concurs, and we will be moving on to item 15A.
All right, thank you, Chair Hart. And this item, there is a complex history with this with the project at this site, and there is a history of unpermitted development that on this site as well. Lots of complexities involved here, but the question that's in front of the Commission today is fairly narrow and straightforward, and that is to ask whether the Commission concurs with the Executive Director's decision to reject a permit amendment related to shoreline or bluff protective devices that were proposed in this case. We'll go into that more fully. Chelsea Jander with the San Diego Coast District Office is joining us remotely, and she'll be taking care of the staff presentation. Go ahead, Chelsea.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Commissioners. Item F15A, it is a dispute of the Executive Director's rejection of an amendment application for after-the-fact approval of construction of bluff retaining walls, grading, and landscaping seaward of the identified bluff edge. Section 13166 of the Commission regulations requires that the Executive Director reject an amendment application if the proposed amendment would lessen or avoid the intended effect of an approved or conditionally approved permit. In May 2023, the Executive Director determined that the proposed retaining walls and bluff protective devices, and thus authorization of the development would lessen the intent of the underlying permit, which prohibits the construction of bluff protective devices. Therefore, the amendment was rejected and the applicant is disputing this determination. There is an addendum for this item, which responds to a letter submitted by the applicant in response to the staff report. Next slide, please. The project is located in the city of Carlsbad on a bluff top lot adjacent to the Pacific Ocean and seaward of Tierra del Oro Street. Next slide, please. The subject site has an extensive history, which is described in detail in the staff report. I'd like to focus on 2 prior Commission permits for the site that are most relevant to this dispute resolution. In 2008, the Commission approved a permit to demolish an existing home on the subject site and construct a single-family residence, with conditions prohibiting any development seaward of the bluff edge. This permit was never exercised and the approval expired. In May 2016, the Commission approved a permit to demolish an existing home and construct a new 3-story, approximately 5,000 square foot single-family residence and attached garage. All approved development was located inland of the established bluff edge as depicted on the slide here. Consistent with the prior commission action on the site, no new development on the bluff face was proposed, and the applicant did not propose any work to the existing development on the bluff face at that time. The permit was issued and the home constructed. Next slide, please. The Coastal Act and Carlsbad LCP allows shoreline protection only when required to protect existing structures. Thus, special condition number 3 was imposed to ensure that the new home will not result in the construction of additional shoreline or bluff protective devices. The condition requires that no new shoreline or bluff protective devices shall ever be constructed. Next slide, please. In March 2023, the applicant submitted an amendment application. The proposed amendment included the following: after the fact approval for construction of several bluff retaining walls, grading and landscaping seaward of the identified bluff edge, installation of new landscaping and hardscape, and reconstruction of existing private staircases. All of the proposed development would be located seaward of the bluff edge established at the time of the commission's authorization of the home. Next slide, please. This cross-section was provided by the applicant during preliminary review of the amendment application. This exhibit demonstrates that the retaining walls constructed on the site without the benefit of a permit retain artificial fill placed on top of the bluff terrace deposits. The commission staff, coastal engineer, and geologists have determined that the retaining walls function as bluff protective devices. The applicants claim that because the retaining walls are non-structural and not designed for wave attack, they are not shoreline or bluff protective devices. However, shoreline or bluff protective devices are determined based on whether the structure has an effect on natural processes such as bluff erosion. The 4-foot wall is retaining fill material behind it, forming a bench which covers the native bluff material below. This protects the native bluff materials from otherwise natural erosion processes. While it may be true that the walls would not withstand undercutting from waves of the bluff below, this does not mean that the wall is not altering natural shoreline or bluff processes. In past actions, the commission has found other mid or upper bluff walls also not designed for wave attack to act as shoreline or bluff protective devices due to their effects on preventing natural subaerial erosional processes. Therefore, the bluff protective devices are inconsistent with and lessen the intent of special condition number 3 of the original permit, which prohibits such development. Next slide, please. Section 13166 of the commission regulations requires that the executive director shall reject an amendment application if the proposed amendment would lessen or avoid the intended effect of an approved or conditionally approved permit, unless the applicant presents newly discovered material information which they could not, with reasonable diligence, have discovered and produced before the permit was granted. Since the amendment application would lessen the intent of the special conditions outlined in the underlying permit, the executive director rejected the amendment. Next slide, please. In response to the executive director's rejection, the applicant requested to enter into the dispute resolution process and makes several contentions. First, the applicant contends that the proposed 4-foot high retaining wall does not serve as shoreline or bluff protective devices and thus is not inconsistent with the requirements of the original permit. As previously discussed, the commission staff, coastal engineer, and geologists have determined that the retaining walls function as bluff protective devices. Thus, an amendment to approve the walls would weaken the intent of special condition number 3 of the underlying permit. The image on the left shows a view from the ground floor of the applicant's single-family residence looking west towards the Pacific Ocean. The approximate location of the established bluff edge is highlighted, as well as the retaining walls already constructed without the benefit of a coastal development permit. The image on the right shows the view from the beach looking east towards the single-family residence. Again, the retaining walls are visible. Next slide, please. In addition, the applicant contends that the site was developed prior to the Coastal Act with multiple accessory structures on the bluff face, which are shown in the photo on the left. The structures include wooden stairs from the home to an approximately 600 square foot wooden deck on the mid bluff, as well as an additional wooden stairs that lead from the wooden deck to the beach. The applicant asserts that because these structures were in existence prior to the Coastal Act, they maintain right to repair and replace them. But as shown in the photo on the right here, the wooden stairs leading from the home to the mid-bluff and the wooden patio were demolished in 2021 at the time of grading and installation of the retaining walls. In addition, the most seaward portion of the wooden stairs have been removed and reconstructed sometime between May 1979 and June 1986 in conjunction with the placement of additional rock revetment. Thus, while there may have been structures on the bluff face prior to the Coastal Act, when the applicant demolished these pre-coastal structures without the benefit of a coastal development permit, any right to repair and maintain them was lost. Next slide, please. The applicant further contends that not only are they entitled to repair and maintain the entire property, but also that no permit is required to do such work. However, special condition number 4 of the underlying permit establishes that all future improvements on this site, including repair and maintenance of existing structures, requires a coastal development permit or amendment. Next slide, please. We note that the outcome of commission action today is limited to the dispute resolution only. Regardless of the commission's actions, the alleged violations identified in the staff report will persist. These violations are the subject of an open enforcement case, and enforcement staff have sent the applicant a notice of violation letter that requests removal of the unpermitted development. Enforcement staff will consider options for future action to resolve the violations. This action today does not foreclose any options to address the matter. Since the amendment lessens the intent of the underlying permit, staff recommends that the commission uphold the executive director's determination to reject the proposed amendment pursuant to Coastal Commission Regulations Section 13166. The motion and resolution can be found on page 5 of the staff report. This concludes staff presentation, and we are available for questions, including the commission's geologist and engineer, as well as our enforcement staff. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Gender. That was a great and complete report. Are there any ex partes on this matter? Or to open the public hearing, ask how many speakers we have.
We have 4.
All right, does that include the applicant?
It does.
All right, start with that person or that entity and ask how much time you'd like.
Good morning, commissioners. My name is Benjamin Benyumoff. I'm a PhD coastal geologist. I'm also a land use litigator. I'm the representative of the Mosses. I got involved in this.
How much time would you like, sir?
I'd like to mostly reserve my time for questions. I hope you have questions.
Okay, so why don't we start with 3 minutes and then anything, we'll see what the questions are and you could come back.
Well,
Would you like
I
longer
may
than
need
that?
more than 3 minutes.
All right, 5 minutes and then we'll see.
So I'm here to help resolve this matter because this is something that should have been resolved a long time ago. And as the staff report summary makes clear, there is no dispute that this stairway and the deck existed in the early 1970s prior to the Coastal Act. The description of this one block wall, a subterranean wall, which has no more than 15 inches of outcropping above grade. To call it a shoreline protective device it's scientifically incorrect. It's not doing anything to protect from subaerial erosion. It's underground. And in fact, in my opinion, it does nothing. As Mr. Schwing mentioned just a few minutes ago, with respect to the retaining walls that are pile-based in San Clemente, I think he just pretty much made my point when he just said that that was not a shoreline protective device. But we're not here to argue, about whether it is or it isn't, because it's very immaterial to my clients moving on in peace, living a very simple, relatively simple life, compared to their neighbors along this stretch of coast. This particular stretch of coast has shotcreted bluffs and concrete stairs and approved retaining walls east or west of the string line and pools. And you can see all these things in our exhibits, There are two videos that I would like to show, which have been uploaded as part of the evidentiary record. And, you know, again, I came into this out of after a lot of people made a big mess of this. I don't think the San Diego Coastal Commission staff did a very, this is just very disingenuous to be putting these people in this position when years ago, before Ms. Hucklebridge, Peter Douglas sat here and told them, on the record, that they would have their stairs. They just wouldn't have their pool, and they just wouldn't have the concrete deck. But to take those images and think that they somehow, tried to get around some kind of local building code in the city of Carlsbad, or to do something illegal to build a shoreline protective device midway up the bluff, is simply not correct. Because the city of Carlsbad looked at this. The city of Carlsbad, as you see in your staff report, exhibits a prior letter that one of our geologists submitted with his comment letter showing that the city of Carlsbad simply did not require a building permit or planning approval to put in that garden wall. And why? Because no one at the city of Carlsbad would even think of it as a shoreline protective device. It's simply not. And so at the end of the day, I would hate for this to go, towards litigation where we're going to sit there and argue. First of all, there's going to be no dispute that these stairs existed and that deck existed in the 1970s. And there's going to be no dispute that the commission has approved and allowed substantial illegal development on this stretch of coast, including at 5039 Tierra del Oro. I understand the former President Al Gore may own that place, or his girlfriend does. There's a lot of wealthy people on this street, and a lot of them have gotten away with a lot of stuff. And I'm here, to help educate my clients and you towards a resolution. Because if you want them to take out this garden wall, well, then we take it out and we backfill it with additional fill. It literally, I could make an argument for why it should stay in, but it's subterranean and it has no foundation and it has no cementation. It has no rebar. It really serves no purpose, in my opinion. Frankly, I've told Janet and Steve before, I don't know why you did it, really. Because, what they want to do is use that mid-level pad that's existed for decades, and they want to repair and maintain their stairway. The reason it wasn't, they were busy with their house plans in 2018. They took out the revetment that was required, the portion that somebody put in before they owned it. So they've done just about everything that's been asked of them. And this is just time for us to all put on our common sense hats and recognize, what they're entitled to. They're not trying, the property next door.
I think we've totally got your point.
Okay.
Did you say, then, I mean, I think you're reiterating and I think you've made a pretty clear case for what your perspective is. Did you say that you had videos that you wanted us to watch?
I got a couple 22-second videos.
Sure,
I
that'd be
think.
great. Why don't we watch that, and then we'll hear if there are other witnesses, and then if that's good with you, you can
Yeah.
save some time for rebuttal.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, let's.
Okay. Do you have the videos, Billy?
Okay, so what we're looking at here, about this. This is a section a little bit further south.
Is this a video or a photo?
It should be a video, Miss.
Oh, that was it. Okay. So you're just showing us the area here?
I didn't see a video.
Oh, here we go. Here's the video.
It's not running. It's a drone video that moves.
Oh, I see
along
it
the
moved.
coast.
Is there a point that you'd like to? Oh, I see.
Well, look,
Okay,
two doors down, there is a private beach above the riprap. One door down to the south, there is a pool.
but
On
this
the,
is
on the, and there are staircases and walls and other, improvements.
Okay, so why don't we approach it this way, since we're going to be focused on the project here that's before us, not on the ones that are down the road or whatever. So if you're good with that, why don't we hear from, if there are other folks that would like to comment on this, and if not, we'll hear what staff has to say, see if there are commissioner questions.
Dave Evans from GeoCon is here for question, or he'll be on the line for questions if
Okay.
you want him. He's the vice president of GeoCon. He really didn't do much except authenticate the photos.
Okay,
My clients would like to speak.
why
to
don't we
that.
just, we'll approach this in an orderly fashion. I'll ask if there are any other speakers on this matter. All right. If you could just state your name and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hello, fellow commissioners. My name is Steve Moss.
If
and
you
I-
can point the mic right at you.
I'm
that would
sorry.
be Perfect. Terrific. Thank you.
My name is Steve Moss, and I'd like to share our family story. Janet and I have been married for 44 years, and we have 2 children, a daughter-in-law, and 2 grandchildren. On behalf of our family, we are here to seek approval from the California Coastal Commission to our revegetation and repair plan, which was previously approved by the city of Carlsbad. Carlsbad determined this revegetation and repair plan does not require a building permit or planning approval. Don't be fooled by nonsense, lack of science, or proof. This is not coastal development. This is not a violation of the deed restriction. We are asserting our legal right to perform lawful maintenance to approved improvements. Let fact, science, equity, and common sense guide you to approve our plan, and don't accept and condone the smoke and mirrors, broken promises, and dereliction of duty of CCC staff. We bought this property in 2004. It had legally permitted stairs. In 2008, the city of Carlsbad approved our CDP for a 20-foot bluff edge and development of the mid-level pad with a pool, spa, and deck, exactly the same as the property to the south, which was granted a CDP prior to ours. Staff has determined that the bluff edge magically changes at the property line, 20 feet to the south, 36 to ours. Without any science or proof, we were forced to accept in 2008 on appeal, no development of the bluff with the pool, the spa, and the concrete deck. Peter Douglas said at that hearing, August 8th, 2008, they're going to have a house. They are going to have their stairway down the face of the bluff. The only thing they won't have is the pool and deck and spa. Do the words of the executive director of the CCC said at a commission meeting have any validity, authority, or legal basis? We received finally in 2018 our building permit. In doing so, we met all of the conditions. We removed revetment. We're the only property of 29 oceanfront properties that has been forced to do this, and we complied. At no time were the stairs an issue. When they issued the CDP and gave us the building permit, our analyst, Tony Ross, said the stairs are a non-issue. We have a right to maintain and repair, replace them as needed. We're not building anything. There is shown as existing on page 1 of the signed permit set that was signed in April of 18, existing. It's not a new home. I brought with, to kind of close this up here, some visual aids, and I'd just like to kind of walk you through it. You've got two packages, Visual Aid 1 and Visual Aid 2. The first page of Visual Aid 1 clearly shows the revetment was removed, and I personally took the picture on March 2nd, 2018. Staff is contending there's issues with the revetment. It's going back in time. The permits issued in 18, it is a non-issue. You can't have two bites at the apple. We can't have double jeopardy. Second page.
Sir,
I'm going to need more time, please. This is,
well, you had a representative for you that I gave a lot of time. Now I've
All
given
right,
you a lot of
then-
time. Let me ask you this.
yes.
How much more time do you need?
Can you give me just 3 more minutes?
Okay, 3 more minutes?
And I'll make it
then
quick.
we'll-
Okay, thank you. I
All right.
appreciate this. Thank you for your consideration. The next page shows the bottom of our stairs. We're asking to just fix 4 bottom feet. The staff says, well, we can't allow that because it's not allowed, which we still don't understand. We only code enforce people when they're under an active permit. Well, they're telling me I can't do something that I'm legally allowed to do. We have an example and more examples of properties in the community that were under permits, and they have these kinds of stairs. Page 3, public use of our property. We have a dangerous condition. We have open stairs. People use our property all the time to traverse. We as homeowners could get sued legally, liable if we don't fix the problem. We need these stairs immediately repaired and replaced. We can't even use the stairs. We stopped using the stairs. They're unsafe for our use. There's our grandchildren in the picture. The next page, while we're struggling to get to our stairs that were legally to get to the beach, to enjoy the resources, other people get to use these unimproved improvements, which, by the way, was reported to the Coastal Commission staff in 2009. It's been 16 years, no code enforcement. The last page of this thread of page 1 is you can see there's beaches that have been put in. Multiple families have used unpermitted bluff development, sand, concrete, and stairs since 2015. Your staff knows about this. They've done no enforcement. They've been out to our property. I've asked them about it, nothing. And this is how we get to how we get to the beach. We have to walk up the highway to get to the beach. In conclusion, I'd like you to just look at visual aid number 2. There's an example of the 2007 established stairs. This is in the public right of way, the lateral deeded access. And I said to staff, the California Coastal Commission are the stewards of our property, of the coastline. You're the property managers. And the problem that's occurred has been the failure to actively pursue and be able to affect change. Your system pits neighbor against neighbor, city against the coast, and you're not using science, you're not using fact. You could annually look at the california.org, look at the coastline, every district, look at the coastline, look at those pictures, and if they see something that looks like something's wrong, then you do some code enforcement. This is de facto approval of unpermitted beach development. I want no ill will with my neighbors. This is a difficult situation for us to live under these circumstances.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you very
Please
much.
look at the last thing. What do I tell my grandchildren? Pops, we can't use the stairs. We can't use this and that, and everyone else does it. Half
thank you
of their
very much.
lives, we've lost our time.
Thank you,
Please
Mr.
allow us to do this. It's 9 simple items of repair and maintenance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have other speakers on this item?
Yes, we have one speaker on Zoom, Mitch Silverstein.
All right, Mr. Silverstein.
Thank you.
That'll be 2
Honorable-
minutes.
Honorable Commissioners, Surfrider supports the staff recommendation to uphold the Executive Director's determination to reject the proposed amendment for the CDP. I am familiar with the site and poured through all the documents, including those submitted by the applicant and their agents. I'm also familiar with the site because it's near one of my favorite beaches in Carlsbad. Surfrider fully supports the staff recommendation, and I was particularly impressed with the addendum to this item, which responded to each and every one of the applicant's assertions in a respectful and science-based manner. While we agree with staff's conclusion that the retaining wall in question is a shoreline and protected device, in our estimation, it's not the main issue. The development in question took place seaward of the established bluff line in their CDP, which stated that no development could take place there without a permit. The CDP in question was for a new development, and it therefore included the entire property. I'll also note that Surfrider agrees with the applicant that neighboring properties have violated the Coastal Act, but that's not what we're here to discuss today. To conclude, Surfrider's main concern here is precedent. If you allow a beachfront or blufftop property owner to violate the conditions of their CDP and then grant them an amendment that effectively rewrites the CDP they violated, then similar property owners statewide will use this decision as precedent to do the same. For the sake of our coast and the important requirements to protect it that are included in CDPs statewide, please support the staff recommendation on this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
There are no more speakers.
All right. I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to Mr. Schwing to respond to the comments by the applicant.
Thank you, Chair Hart. So as I started out my comments on this matter, what's before you today is fairly straightforward and narrow. It is simply the question about whether to support staff's rejection of the permit amendment that includes a bluff protective device that staff has concluded is inconsistent with a previously imposed special condition. That is the only question in front of you today. We are not discussing the merits of their otherwise, proposal. We aren't establishing or addressing the enforcement aspects of this item. All that's in front of the commission is that single question. We do have enforcement staff here today that can answer questions about that matter. We also have our geologist and engineer available to answer questions about the status of the wall itself or walls and how we've concluded that they are bluff protective devices and inconsistent with the underlying special condition. So we're here for questions, and I'll turn to my colleagues to see if there's anything further. Nothing
All
further.
right.
Thank
Not
you.
seeing anything further, bring it back to the commission for questions. Commissioner Bochco, do you have a question or motion or?
No, I have a question first. So I understand, and I hope that the applicant and their representative understand that what is not in front of us at this moment is the wall itself. What's in front of us is the decision whether or not the amendment was denied properly. Is that correct?
Yes, all that's in front of you
That's
is
all
whether
that's in front of us.
staff should accept an amendment that includes a bluff retaining wall that is inconsistent with the underlying condition.
Right. And then, so my question is this. It's obvious that they would like to continue to do this project that they have. What if we agree with you that this is not the appropriate methodology to do that because the amendment was denied properly? What is their option from there? Apply for a CDP?
Well, so ideally, what we want to see is an application for development that we could conclude is not inconsistent with an underlying
Right, but the
permit
inconsistency
condition,
of
but
whether or
also
not, right, but we're not deciding the inconsistency of the project. We're deciding whether the amendment was denied properly.
that's correct.
So what I'm saying is, if we go with the staff recommendation today, that doesn't mean you can't do your project. It means you have to get a CDP, which would only make some sense because then we could look at the project and what's involved with it. Rather than you said something about, going to court or something. I mean, that's another way you can proceed, but the idea of not wanting to have your administrative remedy at your disposal doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Personally, unless there's.
I think Dr. Huckabridge had something.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go
Excuse me,
ahead.
Commissioner
Sorry,
Boczko.
Doc. Thank you, Chair Hart, and thank you, Commissioner Boczko. I just want to make some clarifying comments about kind of the what development could be potentially approved, given the existing CDP and the conditions that were included with it. I don't think, we believe that we could approve any type of bluff retaining device on the site because it was expressly prohibited in the underlying CDP. So while if the commission were to agree with my determination that the amendment was rejected correctly, then we would definitely work with the applicant to bring in another amendment should they choose, but we would not accept it if it included another bluff retaining device. Does that make?
Could it include, I'm just curious about a stairway that did not include any, because there was an original stairway and then it was removed. So it was determined that it was not pre-coastal. Is there any way they could build a stairway without a bluff retaining device? That's what I was curious about, to get down to the beach.
So the challenge we have here is that that was a pre-coastal stairway, and in the permits there was not.
Sorry,
any-
sir, public comments closed. at
The
this
stairway
time.
was not removed.
Sir,
It's
thank
still
you.
there.
Please, sir, thank you. We're just talking to our staff at
But
this
it's
time.
still there. The stairway's still
Thank you.
there. It just is not functional.
Dr. Huckabridge.
There-
you wanna
Yeah,
respond?
thank you. So the stairway, again, was pre-coastal, and so we did not require it to be removed, or there was no, in the previous actions, there was no development proposed or included in those permits. It was pre-coastal. If it exists there now, if it's still there, I'm not actually sure about the status of the stairway myself. If it's there, it is still pre-coastal and still a part of that property and could be retained and repaired. Minor repairs that did not have effects on the underlying bluff are definitely possible, but would require a permit, because that was part of another of the underlying conditions of the CDP, that any development, including repair and maintenance, also required a permit. So if the stairway, if parts of the stairway were removed, then they don't necessarily, at that point, it's that development has been removed and there's no longer a requirement. It's not considered existing development under the Coastal Act any longer.
Is a stairway considered, is a stairway without a retaining wall, is that something that they could apply for a CDP? That's kind of where I keep coming back to access to the beach.
So the applicant, we would want to take a close look to make sure an application like that wouldn't be inconsistent with the underlying conditions. But assuming we were able to make that conclusion, they could apply for such an amendment.
Okay.
Staff wouldn't encourage that necessarily.
Staff would, or?
Well, we wouldn't necessarily encourage that kind of proposal at this point. There's been a fair amount of work done on these stairs without permits. And it's likely, in our view, that they've exceeded what would be considered repair and maintenance. And any work to fully repair those stairs would involve basically redeveloping the stairs. And the LCP itself prohibits development like that on the bluff face.
Okay.
So could they potentially submit an amendment? Yes. Would staff ultimately support that? Probably not. In a staff recommendation in front of this commission.
Thanks, Mr. Schwang. Are you finished, Commissioner Boczko? Because I know Commissioner Cummings had it. Oh, you don't have a question. All right. Any other commissioners have questions? A comment, Commissioner Lowenberg?
Maybe I'm being naive, but is there a way we can get to yes on this? Is there something, it seems, am I missing something, Executive Director? Is there
Well,
something
again,
we?
the action in front of this commission is fairly narrow.
Right,
And
I
what
got
we're
that.
asking the commission to weigh in on is whether the determination to reject the amendment is appropriate.
So that's one.
So that's one. And
But
that's
the-
all that's in front of you today.
I understand.
So whether and how we would consider future development proposed by the applicant is a separate question that, we would need to then work with the applicant to think about how to propose development that would achieve some of their goals and be consistent with both the LCP and the underlying permit that the property is already under. So there is some of this development that we're talking about that would not be approvable in those situations, but there are probably others that could be.
But
It
can
just
you
depends.
amend the original
Yes,
approval?
of course, you can
Yeah.
amend the underlying permit.
Right.
But you can't lessen the conditions of that permit. So we can't approve an amendment that would weaken the existing conditions.
Just trying to figure out a way to get to.
Right, but for today, and I think
for today. Yeah, no, I understand.
one of the issues is, of course, complying with the LCP, which would be, all be part of this, which is, the local regulation that we must find consistency. So, Commissioner Noto.
These permit conditions are very hard won and very thoughtfully applied, and it's something that we need to think of carefully in terms of sea level rise and coastal erosion throughout the entire state. But I do note that in some of the materials that I believe have been submitted by the applicant here, that they have several pages about proposed compromise. So they could, they're certainly free to talk to our staff and figure out a way forward. Commissioner Lowenberg.
Thank you very much. All right, I think Commissioner Bochco would like to make a motion.
Yes,
Can I
Madam
be heard,
Chair.
please?
I'm sorry, no, the public hearing is complete.
You know,
Please,
we
sir.
actually have rules.
I'm trying
This
to.
is a quasi judicial body.
Sir, please sit down.
Who can we
When-
work? Who
Yeah,
can-
You can
the
speak
only
with our
thing
staff after the hearing
He could withdraw if that's his intent, then that is something
Is
that's
that
still
what he
available to him.
to
That's-
withdraw the amendment.
To withdraw the dispute resolution, he could withdraw the
I
amendment
want to,
request.
look,
I'm
look,
sorry, unless you're,
These,
I really, sir, I really am not in a position to argue with you, and I don't want to argue with you. Our counsel has indicated that really your only option here is withdrawal of dispute resolution, begin to work with staff, see if there's a way forward. If you'd like to do that, I'm happy to hear that. Otherwise, I'm not interested at this time. It's outside the procedural.
may I be heard?
requirements.
Maybe I
Only,
heard, Madam Chairperson?
No, sir, only on the
Well,
point of
you
you'd
just
like
asked
to.
me if I would be willing to do that.
All
so
right.
Do I
Would
get
you?
to comment? Well,
She's not asking whether you're willing to withdraw. She's just explaining that at this point in the proceeding, you may withdraw, otherwise you aren't entitled to speak. So we're not requesting withdrawal, but just saying if that's what you intend, great, go for it. If not, you can't speak.
Because the public hearing has been
well, it
closed.
seems to me like that.
Sir, just respond to that one issue. If you want a moment to speak with your clients, that's fine. But other than that,
No. So what I want to know is, what are the consequences of, is he simply not entitled to do anything with the stairs? Because if that's your decision.
sir, that's not,
Well, then
could
that-
you explain
do
again?
We need to find.
Sir, thank you. I think that you're not, it sounds like you're not interested in withdrawing, so I'm not going to be open to any more public comment. Can my commissioners just,
Point of order, may our general counsel explain the administrative hearing rules and why we cannot open public comment after the hearing has been closed pursuant to administrative law and state law?
thanks, Commissioner. And sir, if you could sit down, that would be great.
Thank you, Commissioner Turnbull Sanders. I think you really explained it yourself, that there are rules about the way that we run our meetings. And when the public hearing is closed, then there is no opportunity for public comment at that stage unless the commission has specific questions that it may ask of the applicants or other people who have testified. That is how our administrative proceedings are operated under appropriate regulation. And that's why we are limited to what the applicant can speak to after the public hearing has been closed.
Thank you so much, Ms. Warren. All right, so we currently have or are about to make a motion. Commissioner Bochco was trying to make a motion.
Thank you. I move that the commission overturn the executive director's decision to reject coastal development permit amendment of application number 616-0340A2, and I recommend a no vote.
All right, do we have a second? Commissioner Geary, we have a motion and a second. Ask for a roll call vote, please. Unless either of you like to speak to your motion? No? All right, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Bochco.
No.
Bochco, no. Commissioner Cummings.
Nope.
Cummings, no. Commissioner Escalante.
No.
Escalante, no. Commissioner Lowenberg.
No.
Lowenberg, no. Commissioner Noto.
No.
Nuttall, no. Commissioner Rice?
No.
Rice, no. Commissioner Turnbull Sanders?
No.
Turnbull Sanders, no. Commissioner Baranga?
No.
Baranga, no. Commissioner Aguirre?
No.
Aguirre, no. Chair Hart?
No.
Hart, no. The vote is unanimous.
All right, thank you very much. I believe that's the last item on our agenda. And I just want to thank everyone so much. Our video team, Chris and Vale, you guys were awesome. Staff did an amazing job this hearing. It was a very long day yesterday. Really appreciative. Commissioners, thanks so much. We'll see everybody up in Crescent City next month. Better make your plan to get up there.